Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the November 15, 2011 meeting of the Edina City Council and the Edina Housing and Redevelopment Authority. Roll call, please, Ms. Mangan.
Member Bennett?
Here.
Member Brindle?
Here.
Member Swenson?
Here.
Mayor Hovland?
Here. You have in front of you a meeting agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as shown?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, we approve the meeting agenda. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Mr. Mayor, I had an item I wanted to make sure caught your eye on the dais tonight, and that was the PACE grant from State of Minnesota item. Its number is in the action item is not correct. It's item 8G instead of 7G. There were also there's also an item under your in that same group of items from Jeff Carpenter, and this is an item about appealing a decision of the Edina Park Board, and I'll cover that item in my report tonight. It's from Henson and Efron.
Okay. All right. So there's no change on the agenda. No. 8G, did you say it should?
It should be 8G instead of 7G.
Showing up as 8G on mine.
On the actual
I'm sorry, on the item itself.
Document.
Yep.
Okay.
It's correct on the agenda.
All right. So there's no change on physical change on the agenda you want to make. Okay. Good. All right. Having heard that, is there we have any further discussion with regard to adopting the meeting agenda? All those in favor of adopting the agenda as shown, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. And next we have the adoption of the consent agenda. Is there anyone on the council that wishes to remove an item from the consent agenda? All right. Hearing nothing, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
All right, moved and seconded, we approve the consent agenda. Discussion. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as shown, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. Now, we've got a bittersweet moment in front of us here. We've got one of our longtime city employees retiring, and John is searching for something here. Is this a little recognition piece that John's put together?
He's not.
Oh, okay. All right, we'll let him work for a moment there while we thank you. Well, I'm glad we have a bit of an audience tonight because we have a 34-year employee retiring, worked for the city in every, as hard as she could do it, in every way possible to do the best job for the residents of our town over that entire period of time. And it's been my pleasure, both as a city council person and mayor, to work with her for over a decade now. And she's just done a tremendous job for us, whether she's dealing with managers of departments or her immediate boss, our city manager, or employees, engaging in collective bargaining responsibilities on behalf of the city and all of its residents, or looking for the best possible insurance packages that we can put together for our town. She has done the job. Seal Smith. Seal, we have a resolution of appreciation that we have prepared for you that is going to make a lame attempt to memorialize your wonderful years of service for our city. And when we get all done with this, today is going to be Seal Smith Day in Edina. Tomorrow. Excuse me, tomorrow.
Wednesday.
November 16th, tomorrow. And so you don't have to sit and wonder, well, what happened to my day? I didn't get to appreciate it. You're going to appreciate it tomorrow. Hey, wait a minute. Why is the mayor doing the council doing this after the fact? No. Tomorrow will be Seal Smith Day. And so let me read this resolution of appreciation for Seal Smith. Whereas Ms. Seal Smith began employment with the city of Edina on November 14, 1977. And whereas Ms. Seal Smith has served the city of Edina as its volunteer coordinator, risk manager, human resources manager, and assistant to the city manager. And whereas Ms. Seal Smith served the city of Edina with honor and faithful commitment, and indeed, I would repeat those words, with honor and faithful commitment, for 34 years. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Edina, Minnesota, that the City Council wishes to express its sincere gratitude and appreciation to Ms. Seal Smith for 34 years of distinguished public service to the City of Edina, and that it be further resolved that to honor Seal Smith for her 34 years of dedication to the City of Edina, the City Council declares Wednesday, November 16, 2011, to be Seal Smith Day in Edina to recognize her many years in her career of public service. I take it we'll move this by acclamation. So moved and seconded by everyone. And all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. Still, we're going to walk down here. I'm going to bring the whole council with me so that we can all get a photo with you.
Okay, snuggle up. And I can only say thank you. This has just been remarkable, and what a trip. This has truly been the best place in the world that a person could work. You guys have a great town here, and I just am so proud that I had the opportunity to be part of that for a while. Thank you.
Thank you, Seal. We had a wonderful event for her yesterday at City Hall. Many people turned out to help her celebrate all these years of service. And I don't know what she's got planned, but I suspect that some part of your year will be spent back in your home country in the Ozarks. A little warmer climate.
But some of it's going to be spent back here. I've already asked to be placed on one of the committees through the Historical Society for the 125th anniversary here at the city. So I'll be around, poking around, doing something.
All right, good. Well, we'll look forward to seeing you for many years to come. All right. We're going to move into the public hearing section of the agenda. And John Keprios has the first matter, which is discussion about the potential location, design, and development of the proposed Edina Veterans Memorial.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Seal, forgive me for jumping in front of you. I thought that never mind. Yeah, this is a public hearing, agenda item 6A, for to consider the location, design, and development of the proposed Veterans Memorial. I do have a brief PowerPoint that I'll be tag teaming with our landscape architect, Bob Koss, and he'll tag it back to me for some wrap-up process slides. Why a Veterans Memorial? The committee has decided that it's really there to honor all the Edina residents who've served both past, present, and future in our United States Armed Forces. And it's really there to honor all Edina residents who've made the ultimate sacrifice, those that have been killed in action and at the time were listed as residents of Edina. And we have just an amazing committee member by the name of Marshall Schwartz, who's just done a tremendous job of research and identified that there are in fact 32 residents of the past who were Edina residents who were killed in action while serving the armed forces. Why Veterans Memorial? Also to create a pleasant and respectful place to reflect and to honor our veterans. It's important to mention, and they've said this from the very start, this is not a war memorial. It is a veterans memorial whose purpose is really to honor the veterans and not really to celebrate wars or battles or conflicts. And why at Utley Park? Well, and I think Bob Cost will touch on this some more, but at the very beginning of the process, about 4 different sites were identified, and they had to meet these criteria. It's highly visible to the public. It provides for some private or serene place to accommodate some private reflection. It's also large enough to accommodate formal ceremonies. Has accessible parking. Has a reasonable amount of shade, some wonderful, beautiful shade trees at Utley Park. Aesthetically pleasing, and that meets all that criteria. Access to public restrooms. And after the committee had chosen this site, what was just amazing, I know Bob Cotin brought to our attention that he found some literature that showed there was a committee that formed back in the 1940s that tried to do this very same thing, and they had chosen Utley Park as their chosen site, and we didn't even know that until we had finished our site selection. Process-wise, how we got to where we are, back in January 12 of 2010, the Park Board approved the forming of a Veterans Memorial Committee that they recommended to the Council. On July 13, they approved the 11 volunteer members who had submitted applications. On September 14th of 2010, the Park Board recommended to the Council to spend $30,000 from the Capital Improvement Plan, and that was later approved by Council. On December 14th of last year, the Park Board recommended to the Council to approve an ordinance to build a Veterans Memorial, which would be required by state law, and to also pass a resolution to spend not to exceed figure of $400,000 to develop the memorial, and also to approve the Edina Community Foundation agreement that lists them as our fiscal partner for the process. On February 1st, 2011, City Council approved these 4 items: the ordinance to go forward and build a Veterans Memorial at Utley Park, a resolution to spend the $400,000 not to exceed $400,000, only $30,000 of which comes from taxpayer dollars, which is coming from the Capital Improvement Plan, which they needed for seed money for soft costs. They also approved the Community Foundation agreement and the contract to hire our landscape architect at the firm of SEH Inc. On September 13th of this year, the Park Board, with the help of the Edina Public Art Committee, selected the artist Robert Eccleston, who will be designing and building the sculpture down there. October 14th, just a month ago, we mailed letters from our office to 198 property owners. Those were those within 1,000 feet of Utley Park, to inform them of these 3 things. We conducted an open house here in the council chambers on October 25th for a couple hours, and then informed them of a November 7 Park Board meeting in which they were welcome to give testimony, and also encouraged them to submit any letters or emails to me. And also to inform them of the public hearing that is tonight. And this was mailed back on the 14th of October. And then on November 3rd, to follow up, we sent letters again to those same 198 property owners to remind them there is a public hearing tonight to discuss this matter. Now to talk about the design and the budget, I would tag this over a presentation to our landscape architect, Bob Cost, who's worked very closely with our committee. Bob?
Thanks, Don.
Welcome, Mr. Cost.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, residents of Edina. 6 elements here we'll go through quite quickly.
Before you start on your
Sure.
presentation, do you want to give us your address and business
Oh, you bet.
affiliation?
My name is Bob Cost. I'm a landscape architect with Short Elliott Hendrickson. Our offices are at 100 North 6th Street, Minneapolis, Minnesota, 55403.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So the 6 elements of the presentation: site review, talk a little bit about the park, the updated program that we worked with the veterans on, the design concept, several options that were put forward to add or subtract to the concept, the preliminary cost estimate, and then a list of next steps. So key attributes of Utley Park, as John mentioned, a great site. You all know this place probably better than I do. So I won't spend a lot of time going through all of its attributes, but the green star that you see here is the preferred location. We worked with the veterans for several months through their programming and discussions about places within the park to place the memorial, had several concepts located. Then they followed up and went out to the park themselves and placed a stake in the ground in the location they thought best served the program. So one of the major things we were all trying to do was to preserve all of the elements that are within the park and not disturb them, such as the picnic fire ring or the bridge or the mature trees and those sorts of things. The program that we worked with the veterans on includes 3 flagpoles, which would be illuminated. That would allow them to have an American flag running all the time. If they take the flag down, then they turn the light off. A focal point or figurative sculpture, that was a big part of discussion with the group as to whether it would be modern or figurative or a soldier, those sorts of things. In the end, the eagle with wreath was decided upon. A gathering space with an area for a podium so we could have ceremonies and those sorts of things, somewhere up to 150 to 200 people. Accessible hard surfaces, walkways, and a plaza. Accessibility is really key here so that this is multi-generational. An area for contemplation where there would be benches. A display pylon feature where we would display the 5 military service emblems, names of those killed in action. A thank you to Edina veterans and to all the families that have supported all of its veterans. Several quotations to be selected by the veterans. Seasonal plantings. The thought was that this really could serve as a nice destination within the park. And of course, some provision to acknowledge potential major donors. So here you see a couple slides of where we've placed a little red line there where the stake was for a view of the location. The grade drops away as you head towards the creek. It is an open, cleared spot. Here is a character sketch then that pretty much summarizes the main features of the project. You see the memorial wall there that has a little bit of a seat or wall, step kind of built into it. That's a place where people can lay memorial flowers. The names would be engraved on that. You can see the star shape that's done in several colors of granite and a little sort of granite base that would hold the or support the flags and the ornamental grasses on either side. Here is a view of the memorial as it's placed in the park, again on the location selected by the veterans. One of the things you see here that's part of this project is a new walkway that would be constructed so allow people to come from the parking area either at 50th Street or in the parking lot and make their way on a walkway, come to a point where the memorial sets up as an access to one of the major pine trees, and then you can enter the site. The secondary access, not accessible, where you'd use stairs, is from the lower existing trail, and you see 2 extensions of sidewalk to that trail where you would walk, come up a short flight of stairs, about 6 or 7 stairs, and enter the memorial from the south. The design of the memorial is quite purposeful here. We think it's important as we design these places that there's some symbolism, there's some things that are sort of built in. So the shape of the plaza is purposeful, that it sort of stands for the letter V for victory, and it also is axial in terms of its orientation, that it sets up on some of the major pine trees within the park. The shape also allows for the largest gatherings in proximity to a speaker at the podium, so it creates a sense of compression and release as you enter the space. It's narrowest, and as you head towards the sculpture and the memorial wall, it's wider. That would be the place where, again, a speaker might stand at a podium, and chairs could be placed or people could stand, so we could get as many people as close to the sculpture as possible. The other sort of feature here is creating a fairly formal axial symmetry. We think that's important in terms of honoring those who've served. It's basically a place of prominence or a head of the table kind of idea, so that's why we've placed the orientation in that location. The flagpoles, again, as part of the program, they're facing east, which represents future and rebirth. And it also, allows us to kind of borrow the architecture from the church across the street, which again creates a more ceremonial and important setting, we think. And then here are some of the particulars on the plaza design. About 1,200 square feet of granite, accessible from a new walkway and the trail, illuminated flag posts, poles with a quote, granite memorial wall with the eagle, the quotes, the names, ornamental grasses running along the sides, wood and steel benches with backs so they'd be comfortable to sit upon. There'd be a place along the back of the bench, for example, where we could honor significant donors. Stadium seat step to allow for viewing of the creekscape that runs on either side of the memorial wall. Access walkway and stairway up to the Memorial Plaza. And then as far as dealing with stormwater and some of the environmental concerns of building in the park, which is in the floodplain, we're proposing a couple of rain gardens that in the final design could be used to filter stormwater as well as provide for a nice natural setting. So here's a view of the cross section. The plaza runs about 48 feet in length. This is a longitudinal section. You can see kind of coming into the plaza, the ornamental grasses in the background, the large existing oak tree back there, a setting for the flags, the two benches that would be placed on both sides of the plaza. You get to this eagle and wreath atop a granite wall, the engraved quotations, and then you can see the sort of 18-inch drop there, which would be a place where people could informally sit and view the creek or passers-by. Here's an example of the thought on the service medallions. The idea here was to look at cast bronze. These could get placed then into the granite wall, so they would be very attractive and very easy to read. They also have a texture, so they would allow folks who are visually impaired to partake and understand what's on the medallions. The bench to the left is the bench that we've proposed. It's made of decay-resistant, sustainable wood, durable steel. The example to the right is just the idea that we could place a tasteful donor name on the back of the bench. Some other options or things built into the memorial, as I mentioned earlier, a bouquet shelf. It's very common for people visiting memorials to bring bouquets of flowers. This would allow them to be placed along the base of the memorial without putting them on the ground. And there's also the opportunity, as this thing lives over time, that the sides of the panel could be created in bas-relief to do other kinds of commemoration for honoring folks in Edina. And then you get a close-up of the stadium seat step here. Again, the black granite base for the flags provides an opportunity for a quotation. And this was an optional element that we proposed that could be placed at the end, at the entrance to the memorial across the pathway, where names of major donors could be recognized as part of the project, but not directly within the project. It also creates an opportunity for other kinds of quotations. So next steps. Obviously, we're here tonight to present the project and hopefully receive your approval. After that, fundraising will begin, working with the artist to refine the sculpture and the granite base, the names, the layout, all of those things, final design, develop those plans for bidding, and bid award and build the project.
Thank you, Bob. Lastly, at the process as we continue, the committee is really to conduct all the needed research we've done a marvelous job of. All the fundraising will be done by volunteers, just to be clear, not by staff. Staff will continue, I'll continue to serve as the staff liaison to the committee, which has actually been a pleasure and honor to serve with these passionate gentlemen. And if approved by council, the fundraising campaign would then begin. Construction would not begin until all the funds are raised and are in the account with the Edina Community Foundation. And staff would oversee the construction management should we get to that point. And I need to give a pleasure to give really a special thanks to my 11-member committee. They have worked tirelessly. They've put in many hours and some really tough subjects. Also a special recognition to our chairman, Mike Corrigan, who walked into my office back in 2009 and said, we need to have one of these. What would it take? And I said, well, it would take someone to lead the charge. And he raised his hand. And I really appreciate all the support and the leadership that he's given. And a big thanks to all of our committee members. They're just an amazing group of 11 passionate people. With that, this being a public hearing, the Park Board's recommendation to the City Council, they unanimously approved a recommendation to the Council to approve to go forward with the Veterans Memorial, the design, and its location. And before you open it up to a public hearing, I know Bob and I would stand to answer any questions you might have.
Questions for Director Caprios at this point in time? Anyone else? John, could I ask a question? Was it your intent then that you would come back, because the Park Board, let me ask it this way, because the Park Board approved the design and location of the project, was it your intention then that you would go back to them for construction permission once the funds were raised, or you had mentioned also that this was to be contingent on folks raising the money? So I don't see a contingency provision in the proposed action. So I'm just wondering if you can explain to us how you see this working from a process standpoint.
Okay, thank you. What I would anticipate, there are still some last fine-tuned details that still have to be ironed out. Exactly the inscriptions, the phrases that will be used, what the actual final design will look like. And it's my intent to bring that to the Park Board for their final approval, which then I would forward to the City Council. But I believe tonight it's before you to go with the location and the design and concept. Of course, you've already approved the ordinance and the resolution in the past, but I would be bringing it back to the Park Board once the very final plans are put together.
Your Honor, if I might, just so the record is clear, the Park Board action was to recommend that this body approve because they don't have the authority to approve. So
Right.
it did send us a unanimous recommendation, but it wasn't actually an approval.
Thank you. Yes, it's advisory.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other questions for John or for Bob? All right. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone that wishes to come forward and comment regarding this matter or make any inquiry? I see folks in the audience that have worked on this for a long time. If anyone wants to come forward, you sure should feel comfortable coming forward and giving us your comments. Jennifer mentioned earlier that you'll have 3 minutes. I think if you want to use one of the side podiums, come on up, give us your name and address, and when the green light goes on, you can start, and when the yellow light comes on, you'll have about 30 seconds to wrap up. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you, sir. Council members, Mayor. My name is Marshall Schwartz. I live at 5528 Dundee Road. My wife and I have lived there for 20 years and raised 2 children in Edina. From that perspective, I must say this is a wonderful city. There's very, very little that we could recommend that would make it better, and I agree with you. One of the few things, as I told the Park Board last week, that we think would make it a better city would be to have this Veterans Memorial. It is so important. I put over 1,000 hours into this project already, and I'm almost 69. I've been around the block a number of times, and I can't think of a project where the people I've worked with, both on the committee and out in the community, have been more supportive and more friendly. I look around, I see the city clerk, I see the city engineer, I see the police department, planning, of course, Park Board. Everybody has been so helpful in the community. The support is really there. And one of the things I've learned as I've done the research is the deep tradition of military service that exists in Edina today, and even before there was Edina, when the Civil War veterans came back and settled their families, and new veterans moved into the area. And then we became a community and went on. And World War I, World War II. It's difficult for me to drive around this city and not see a house that I can know that a gold star hung in that window. We had 9,000 people here during World War II. We had 25 people killed. And because the concentration was primarily in the country club in the Morningside area, the houses, you couldn't go 3-4 houses. And we're talking about a young boy who was 20 years old, who was on that battleship Arizona at Pearl Harbor, who was killed in the opening minutes of World War II, to a young man, a West Point graduate, who was killed hours before World War II ended. And the service they had, I have spoken to a young man whose mother was pregnant with him when his father was killed in Germany in April 30th, 1945. He is now in his mid-60s, and only last year he and his wife went to Europe and visited his father's grave. It was the first contact he'd ever had with his father. And I spoke to another person whose uncle died in a prisoner of war camp. The name was Bernard Johnson, or Bernard Place, right off of Benton. That was him. He's buried in the Netherlands, and his nephew and family members went to visit his grave. By having this memorial, we will be bringing these people back, a little bit of them, but their name, to where they grew up, where they lived, where their families grieved, where the gold stars hung. Mike and I were down at Utley Park today, and we were talking to the reporter from Channel 5, and he asked me, and he said, is this a frill or is this really something necessary? And I told him, this is really something necessary. This is part of our community, and it adds value, and I can't think of many more things that we can do to make it better, but this is one of them. So I really urge you to think positively and continue supporting this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Anyone else wish to come forward? Hearing nothing and seeing no one coming forward, is there a motion to close the public hearing? Moved and seconded to close the public hearing. Discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. Discussion. Or is there a motion?
I will second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the proposed design, location, and development of a Veterans Memorial at Utley Park. Further discussion?
Yes.
Member Brindle?
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Mr. Schwartz, thank you for your comments. The question from the reporter is a good one. Is this a frill or is it necessary? I think it's a quality of life issue, and it's an indication of quality of life. So I would put it on the necessary side because it's going to affect everybody. Those people who come upon it and don't know that what they're approaching when they get to it, hopefully they have to stop at the red light so they can take a look at it and see really what it is. So I'm anticipating that I hope that the money's raised quickly and that we get this built, because it really is something that is going to draw people to it. My question, I do have a question about lighting. As with anything that gets lit, if there is a park and there is a light pole that is put in the park, we can pretty well guarantee somebody's going to look and say, wait a minute, where did that light come from? The homes that I think could be most immediately affected are the homes in Edina Court, because the other homes toward the east and south are a little more shielded by the trees, whereas it's a little more open as you go north and across Wooddale looking toward Edina Court. So the lighting of the flagpoles, they are on the south side of the, no, they're on the east side.
They're on the east side.
They're on the east side, so I'm looking at where the light bulbs are, and where's the most intense light going to be? What direction is that going to be?
Good question. Right now, because we're just in concept design, we know we'll be illuminating the American flag because that's the one that's, required to be done that way. We've contemplated that would be done as either a ground-mounted or more likely a pedestal-mounted fixture. Hopefully that would be then put into the base of the granite plinth that you saw in the sketch, and that would shine up at the American flag. So it could be very easily shielded, if you would, from on the north side and on the east side, so that glare would not escape from that location, but it would illuminate vertically. So there will be a glow from a distance, but we should be able to use a fixture in such a way that it would cut off its illumination, if you would, away from the park, so it wouldn't affect those homeowners. I think that would certainly be something we would look at very carefully in the final design, so that nobody in the city would be affected by overlighting or spill-off lighting from the project.
Okay, thank you. And my final comment is this is so elegant in its simplicity. I really like it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Member Bennett?
Yes, I share concerns about lighting from a night sky perspective and wildlife perspective, and so am pleased to learn that there will be some thought given in the design to the shielding.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And I think that as we get into final design, we're going to have to look very carefully at how we do that, because we're also very mindful of not wanting to create light pollution. We understand that, as a creek corridor, there's a lot of critters that come and go through there who need nighttime darkness. So even though we need to be respectful of the flag, we also need to be respectful of those who have no say in the matter. So we would be really looking at that quite carefully.
I also have a question for Director Caprios. I understand that there was from the most recent set of committee minutes, that donation was offered from the Daughters of the American Revolution for a flagpole. And there was reference made to a donation policy that I've never seen, and would appreciate seeing a copy of it, but also understand that's under study. And having seen an article in the Star Tribune that discussed the other communities that are attempting to build and fund veterans memorials, would encourage there to be some embracing of where donations can be offered or are offered.
The current donations policy as it stands today, that was approved by council, recommended by Park Board, does require a $5,000 threshold. That proposed donation did not exceed that amount, which was one of the main reasons why it was rejected. The other is they really want to minimize the names and recognition, with the exception of the 32 that were killed in action and the absolutely most significant donors. And that'll all be part of the final design that'll come before you after it goes to Park Board, and you'll hear their advice, their recommendation.
I've been on council since 2007, so that policy must precede me. And again, I've never seen it, so would appreciate a chance to take a look at it. Is that under study right now by one of the Park Board committees?
It is.
Okay, so we'll look forward to hearing their recommendations as well. Okay. Thank you very much.
Director Caprios? With regard to that potential donation, those folks, Daughters of the American Revolution, could still make that grant to the Edina Community Foundation to help with the construction of this. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
It's just that we can't accept it at the city because of the city policy, but nothing would preclude them from making the donation.
The donation came with the string attached that it required to have a plaque, and that's why it was rejected. Without the strings attached, the donation is more than welcomed.
Okay.
Member Bennett.
I remembered my other question, and that was, with the number of communities that are seeking to raise funds at this time, and with the challenges that some of them are facing, is this design one that could be built in parts, or once, I understand that it's supposed to be built when all the money's raised, but is this something that could have, as some communities have done, be built in part as funding levels are reached, or is that not contemplated to be a possibility?
That actually, the discussion has not taken place at the committee level. That's something we could certainly consider. They're very optimistic. They're going to get it all done. And if they find that they have to go to Plan B, I think you'll be hearing back from us. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to tell all of you that every time you come here, this becomes more possible, more real. And every time you come here, it becomes more humanized. And Marshall, I want to thank you for doing all this work, trying to find out who these folks were that passed away in a conflict. So thanks to all of you again. We've got a motion in front of us and a second. Further discussion. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. Thank you. Our best. And I think you'll find a good partner in the Edina Community Foundation on this matter. And I think you will have the success that you are optimistic about as well. We have another public hearing this evening. It involves the consideration of a temporary on-sale intoxicating liquor license for St. Patrick's Catholic Church for an event that they want to hold December 3rd, 2011. Chief Long has this matter.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. The Church of St. Patrick has applied for a temporary intoxicating liquor license for an event titled Evening for a Brighter Tomorrow. The event will be held on December 3rd from 6 p.m. to midnight. The applicants are eligible for the liquor license and have submitted plans to meet the special requirements for a temporary liquor license under city code. It would be our recommendation that it be approved.
Thank you. Questions for the chief? Thank you. Stand by and we'll see if anyone wants to testify. Again, this is a public hearing. I'm going to open up the matter as a public hearing. Is there anyone that wishes to come forward and testify with regard to the issuance of this temporary on-sale intoxicating liquor license to St. Patrick's Catholic Church for an event they want to hold on December 3rd? Seeing no one coming forward and hearing nothing, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Moved and seconded, we close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Carried. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded, we approve the issuance of the temporary on-sale intoxicating liquor license with all the attendant regulations surrounding it that we've been through many times. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Carried. All right, we are at the community comment portion of the agenda, having concluded our public hearings for the evening. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address the council with regard to a matter of concern to them? Yes, ma'am. Come on up and
Name and address.
tell us what you're concerned about, and give us your name and address, please.
My name is Sarah Patsoff. I live at 5508 Chantry Road in Edina.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Not here for that, though. I'm concerned about the change that is on the agenda tonight for Centennial Lakes, from the wood burning to the gas, converting our fireplaces there, and the future ramifications of that.
She can't talk about that.
All right, and your concerns are?
My concerns are, first, that, you know, this proposal has come to the council. I understand that it was in the Energy Environment Commission before that. I'm not aware of it being at the council before tonight. One, looking at just simply at the bare costs of approximately $5,000 according to the article in the Sun Current. We currently spend $800 a year according to that same article on wood to just, you know, make the change, not including the cost of gas. That's a 6-year return, but now we also need to pay for gas for this. So there are financial implications. But I also believe that this is the first step to banning wood-burning fires in the city of Edina, whether they are our backyard fire pits or fireplaces or the fireplaces in our home. I'm very concerned that this is a first step. In reading the article and some of the comments from Diane Plunkett-Latham and comments in referencing that this goes back to caveman days and that we are very attached to our fires, but that we need to move on from those. And the city setting example for us in what we should be doing in our homes and in our yards. There are a lot of people, I talk to people about this, and these are not things we want to give up. I know that the city thinks that this is a good thing based on a very vocal resident who has pushed for this change, and I'm sorry for those people's health conditions, but we all have our crosses to bear and health conditions to deal with. And the reality is we live in condensed living. I have to listen to my neighbor's lawnmower when I'm having a birthday party or whatever it is. We all have things that we have to deal with when we live like this, and whether it's on city property or our own personal properties, I believe it's our right to burn wood fires if we so choose.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, if it's all going to be on the same topic, you've just gone against the rule of speaking item.
Good evening. I'm Wayne Carlson. I live at 523 Coventry Lane, and I was here about 90 days ago on my appeal for a variance for 4 dogs, and I was told at that time that it would take about 60 days to come up with some kind of decision on that. I have provided the council with a letter from Dr. Moe. He's contacted and talked to the people in the police department and had contact with them. You also were concerned about public safety, and I've invited all of you to come out and see how the dogs perform publicly. I've also asked the chief of police and Officer Hunter to come out and see how these dogs behave and how much of a threat to public safety they are. And I guess my question is, where are we with this? Is this moving along, and about where are we with it?
Your Honor, I can take that one. At this point, there still are some unanswered questions about the advisability of granting the variance request. The last time we talked about this issue, I believe there were some medical conditions that were used as part of the rationale for why the council ought to grant this. The city is endeavoring to look into these and has not fully had all of our questions answered yet, and we are continuing to work on it. I believe that we will come back to you in December, probably the first meeting in December, to give you a recommendation.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Carlson. Anyone else? All right. We're going to move on to the reports and recommendations section of the agenda. 8A is the capital improvement plan that is in front of us tonight for potential approval. Director Wallen.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. In your packet was the updated capital improvement program for the years 2012 through 2016. There were some changes you had seen this in a November 1st work session. There are some changes that have been made to this document. The Art Center parking lot expansion was postponed until 2013. Park Department Natural Resources inventory was removed from the CIP. Cost estimates for 2 public safety projects were updated to reflect better estimates. And a 4th issue for the HRA, the project was removed for the pedestrian bridge. On your as you were here today, I believe a packet was put on in front of you, which would update the CIP The last 2 pages would be a change that we would make in the CIP that as you would have received the packet concerning that HRA project and putting back in a portion that should not have been taken out concerning France Avenue pedestrian movement, and then some wording changes on another piece of that for the promenade phase 3. With that, if I can stand for questions and would recommend approval or adoption of the 2012-2016 capital improvement program.
Member Swenson.
I think in our pre-meeting, when we discussed the $100,000 that was removed for the natural resources inventory, didn't I hear from Director Caprios that they had moved it over to the golf course? So didn't it just get relocated? No, it didn't. So it's out of the CIP entirely?
In the version we sent to you, it was out. If you want to tonight make an allocation of that, we can certainly do that.
No, I guess I'm just confused because I thought I heard that it wasn't out. They had just relocated it. So could we have Director Caprios? He's sorry. That's okay. In the cover notes for our CIP, it says that you remove the $100,000 from the Parks Department Natural Resources inventory, and it's not in this new one we have. But it seems to me that when we talked about it earlier at the 5 o'clock meeting, you said that you were reallocating it over to Braemar. Is that correct? Or you're thinking of doing it? So where is it now?
I just wanted to express that the Park Board wanted to express their view that they wanted to have the council consider their recommendation to take that $100,000 and apply it toward the high priority project of the driving range and executive course. And I asked Todd Anderson to come here, who's in the audience. And what we've learned since then, it's a much larger project than what the Memorial Fund and $100,000 can accomplish. It's going to be a greater project than that. So I told him we would meet with Manager Neal and try to get some stronger numbers and come back with a proposal, unless you'd like to take some action tonight to put more capital dollars toward that and make it happen this year.
No, I just wanted to know where that $100,000 had gone, and I know we talked about maybe trying to start the back end of the project first to see if that was doable, and that you were going to look into that, and I'm not expecting a report on that tonight. I just kind of wondered where the money was so that I would know if it was included in this but just it didn't show up, or you're still working on what to do for a full plan.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Member Bennett.
Yes, this may be a question for either Mr. Wallen or Director Houle, and that is that under HRA, originally with the bridge in the CIP, the total for the 5 years was over $22 million. With the bridge deleted, it's now $19 million. However, depending on what is deemed feasible for pedestrian crossings of France and York, is it possible that there would be TIF funds available in the amount of $22 million, or was that original figure something that would have required some additional funding? In other words, is the amount that can be spent on these upgrades in this area limited to the figure in today's CIP, or is it possible that there may be more funds available as work is done in coming years?
Let me take the shot at the easy part of that. Is that the Councilmember Bennett and Council, is that the pedestrian crossings, there's a potential if we are successful on our scope change, is that $1 million could be spent on the pedestrian upgrades along France Avenue, as long as we match 20% to that $1 million. So they have that potential on it. If we aren't successful, then I'm anticipating that the upgrades would come out of the TIF district. As far as the $22 million, I think John or Manager Neal could probably answer that question.
Say that again.
The question was that originally, the CIP in its iteration before this iteration had a total in this category of, without reading glasses, 22.2 million. And with the deletion of the bridge, which was scheduled for $3 million in 2012, the total for the 5 years is now reduced to 19.2 million. And my question was whether that 22, contemplating that $1 million in federal funding, but the balance coming from local funds, is there the possibility that depending on what is feasible and desired in the area, there can be more than 19.2 million spent? Would there be funds available in the TIF account by 2016? Or is the amount of total improvement in that area now reduced by $3 million total?
John, do you want,
It's based on estimates of what future TIF would be for the next several years. Ehlers did take a look at that, and I believe it was that around that 21 million, 21 to 22 million that they estimated that there would be. They're assuming the current rate of TIF would continue coming in for the duration of the district.
That would be my estimate as well. I would say that number won't be larger than that, and it is always subject to changes in state code. And as we all know, the state legislature frequently tinkers with TIF districts and TIF laws. So I would think it's not going to be larger than what you see there, for sure.
In fact, I think, Director Wallen, I think you represented to the council at one of our work sessions on the capital improvement plan that you anticipated that by 2016 there would be about approximately $20 million in that TIF district.
That's correct.
If we don't spend it again.
Thank you.
Right. Yeah. Now, other questions with respect to this plan. We've been working on this plan for many months, and it's gotten more refined, and these changes reflect, that you've discussed tonight, reflect some of the concerns of the council. And so do other council members have additional questions, or do you want to move the matter?
I've asked my questions and gotten answers, so I'll move the matter.
I would second.
Discussion? Further discussion? All those in favor of adopting the capital improvement plan for the period 2012 through 2016, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. And next we have proposed ordinance change amending Section 185, Schedule A, which would increase utility fees if approved by the council.
Yes, sir. Also at the November 1st work session, the city's consultant, Ehlers and Associates, was presented a rate study for the year starting in 2012. What's in front of you tonight is Ordinance 2011-17, following through with what their recommendations are for rates for 2012. Several minor changes were made to the rate study on a graph and on a couple of other things. But I would recommend first reading tonight of Ordinance 2011-17.
Questions for Director Wallen? Member Bennett?
Yes, Director Wallen, can you please walk us through those minor changes?
The changes, first one was historic water use graph was updated to reflect actual amounts. There was a mistake. We not sure where it was. The amounts that had been used, it was reported to the DNR on an annual basis. We made a mistake last year with that amount, so we updated, or Ehlers updated that chart to reflect actual amount, even though it would differ from what we had reported to the DNR. There was a wording change concerning usage fees for Morningside, in hope to be a little more clear of how that rate is determined, and that what the what the change would be from 2010, or from 2011 to 2012.
And I have a question regarding that language. It looks like that the language that's been added is actually incorrect.
Okay.
It states that it refers to the rates for Minneapolis and does not include the City of Edina administrative charge, when actually it, of course, does.
Okay, that should be changed, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what were the other changes?
And then the other change was at the end. It was the last page of the document. There was an error on sewer usage based on 16 units. It was off by 3 cents. So there was a appendix H, I believe, had a mathematical error in it. And those were the changes that were made.
So that reflects a base rate of, for residential and commercial sewer usage, 216 units of $49.28 rather than $49.25, as was stated in the previous.
That's correct.
Okay. And may I continue?
Yeah.
Thank you. Director Wallen, I am baffled by the inclusion of the Morningside rate in this study at the same amount that came in front of us on November 1, because I thought we discussed it at that time, that City of Minneapolis sets its own rates.
That's correct.
And does so in December of each year.
You could do a couple of different things. You could adopt first reading, and we could wait on second reading until we know for certain what the Minneapolis rate will be, because that is correct. We are it's an estimate at this point with what's in this ordinance as to what, based on past increases, what Minneapolis would be. But that is correct that part of the rate for Morningside is based on the Morningside, or we could pull out the Morningside piece and adopt that at a different time.
I went through my files today and found all the past actions that have been taken since I came on council. And in past years, it hasn't been an issue because these rates have been adjusted in January. And I understand we want to have them up and ready to go by January 1. That's Minneapolis's plan as well. Last year, I believe that this action was actually brought forward at the first meeting in December. At that point, it also was not known what the Minneapolis rates would be, but they historically have always been set at one of the earlier Minneapolis City Council meetings, and so they are always known by the second meeting on our calendar.
Yes, that's right.
And so rate increases in the past have been able to be based on actual, not speculated rate increases, and that would be my really strong preference. Otherwise, what is in this document represents a 33% rate increase for water customers in Morningside, and that's about 5 times what's proposed for the rest of the city.
Okay, I was, according to my amounts, I thought it was a 5% increase in the water fee.
Well, since the only part of this charge that we control, that the City of Edina controls and that we know about, is this Edina surcharge, and that's 36 cents for 2011, increasing the Minneapolis charge is $1.98 a unit. To approve an increase of $2.46 would be increasing the Edina portion, the surcharge, from 36 to 48 cents, and that would be a 33% rate increase.
Okay, you're referring to what you're leaving out the part about any part about Minneapolis increase.
Well, we don't know what Minneapolis is going to do. I do sit on the Water Advisory Board. Thank you, Manager Neal, and thank you, Council, for appointing me. And so I do have more information than I had in past years. I did speak today with Bernie Bullard in the Minneapolis Water Department, or spoke with his one coworker, had spoken with Mr. Bullard last month, and that Minneapolis City Council has authorized the creation of a fixed rate, which will be decided again in December with the water rates. It is possible that there will be no rate increase for 2012 pending with the implementation of this fixed rate. It's possible that there will. We just don't know at this point. And that's why I refer to the rate of 246 for Morningside customers as premature. At best, we certainly will again have that information in time to set it at the end of the year.
That's correct. Yeah, we would if either way, but if we adopted a rate tonight and that rate was wrong based on the Minneapolis side, we would come back to you. But if you would rather hold that either one of those to adopt first reading on second reading, if the rate is different, we would bring to you a different Morningside rate, or pull out the Morningside piece, or wait on the ordinance in entirety.
A second question or set of questions that I have is concerning the city usage for water. And this was something that was actually raised by a resident who participated in the Citizens League budget process. And Assistant Finance Director Eric Rogman was in attendance, and a resident asked whether or not the pool was billed for water. And thank you very much for providing the chart at the work session this evening. It does look like there are some city entities that are billed for water and others that are not. And it would be, I think, very helpful to know what amounts that usage is and also what the cost would be. We're moving toward more and more transparency and in our budget so that people understand what it costs for these facilities to be operated. And since usage fees go to the capital as well as operating expenses of the utility fund as well as to the enterprises, and I think it would be really helpful to know those numbers, and then policy decisions can be made. But right now, it would seem to me that if entities are not being billed for water, that then it's the other water customers in the city who are picking up that usage?
In some of the areas, and it's up to the city council as to how they want to charge, which they want to charge. But on some of those that we don't have, that we haven't been charging water, we don't have a usage for many of those, and wouldn't until we install a meter or start reading that meter if one is installed. So there would be a minimum 3 months to know what some of these facilities are using that we aren't charging them for. If we're reading the meter on the most case, and we're reading meter on a number of park facilities, but for that purpose, you would also be looking at if you'd want to charge for irrigating parks and those types of things, you would also be looking at a budget increase to reflect the charge of charging the park programs, park facilities for irrigation water that we're currently not charging them. So there would be a number of issues that would pertain to that. And again, if we're not charging for water now on that list, we haven't been reading the meter, and in some cases there isn't a meter, and it would take at least 3 months to get any kind of a history to know what usage there is on those properties.
Member Bennett, you want to finish your thought?
Well, my last point is it looks like, and again, we just got this list at the work session earlier today at 5 o'clock and discussed it at a little before 7, but it looks from the list like maybe the largest potential water user not being billed, other than, I know that Braemar Golf Course has its own wells for irrigation. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so then domestic use at Braemar Golf Course, however, is not measured or billed at this point.
Domestic use is and should be. The ones you might see there would be different. Is we charge a minimum sewer for the restroom facilities on the course. But if we installed a meter out on those facilities, it would be difficult at best to rate it. And I'm assuming that the amount of water used in those restroom facilities would be minimal at best.
So it's the Golf Dome, I'm sorry, I'm
Oh,
correcting,
that is
Member
correct, the
Brindle has
Golf-
corrected me.
Yep.
It looks like the domestic use for other Braemar facilities, but the Dome and the Executive Clubhouse are not billed. And then the arena, it appears the arena is not.
That is
metered or billed.
correct on those facilities. However, again, if there is a meter, we haven't read it. So as of this point, and we can do it at any point, we can start that. But in order to get a determination of how much usage that would entail, would take 3 months of for us to get a usage. And particularly if you're looking at the golf course now, you wouldn't get much of a usage on I guess the Dome you probably would going forward here shortly. But
Thank you.
Yep.
Member Swenson.
They're both good issues, but I see them as two. One is a policy issue as to how we handle water, sewer at our enterprises and some of our other things. And one is this, and not that it doesn't in some way impact utilities, but I think we've spent a lot of time and money on a utility rate study. We know where we are as a city because the utility rate study helps us maintain our city. So I would propose that what you're asking about for those facilities is a good one, but I think that's a conversation that we need to schedule as to how we want to handle it going forward is a separate one as to the utility rate fees. And my question to you is, are you comfortable with going forward as a first reading and holding the second reading till after we have the final figures from Minneapolis? Member Bennett.
I would be more comfortable, first of all, I would welcome a discussion in the future. I understand
No, I'm
it's not going to be
supporting the discussion
concluded.
in the future, but I'm just trying to separate the two right now so that we can.
Understood. And they are two distinct issues. Some,
Just put together because they're both sewer, but yes.
Right. And I would feel more comfortable procedurally and in terms of future effect in pulling out the Morningside rate and would consent to first and waiver of second reading when the rate is final for Minneapolis. I mean, it's math. It's set when it arrives. There's no policy decision to be made when it arrives, but it's a set number, and I don't think it's going to come close to the 246 this year from what we've been told on the Water Board.
Do you want to do a first and second reading on this document without Morningside, or do you want just a first reading on this document without Morningside? Or you don't care?
Let's go slow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I would suggest a first reading on it, and I would make a motion to that excluding the Morningside portion.
Okay. I appreciate the distinction that you're making, and I know that we're all worked very hard on this for a number of years. The issue has come back to us with a full study now this year after a year off.
Sure. Okay. So is there a second?
I guess I would prefer.
Let's have a second, or we.
Okay, I'll second. I would prefer, I don't want to take anything out of it in order to pass it on a first reading tonight. What I'd prefer is if we're going to take that Morningside figure out of it and wait to get the Morningside figure, then let's wait to get the Morningside figure and pass it waiving second reading at our next meeting.
Well, it won't be at our next meeting. It will be about the 20th of December meeting, because that's when we'll get, because the next meeting is December 6th.
Yeah. Okay.
So
All right.
it's December 20th, and I was hoping that by being able to pass the part of this, so it's everything but Morningside, then they can start programming all their charges and everything so that they're ready to go ahead January 1st.
Understood.
I just think that is helpful. That's why I asked if we could also do second reading too.
Understood.
But I understand if we want to go slowly.
No, I agree. That's a good idea because it's a small population
Yeah.
that we're concerned about. And so we can move forward with a larger population. And there's some work involved, correct?
That's correct.
So, yes, I understand.
Thank you.
This discussion has created more comfort for you?
Yes.
All right.
I just, we can vote, then I have a comment.
Before we do vote, I think, Director Wallen, you should comment for people in the audience and also for people at home as to why we're considering this rate increase with respect to water rates, sewer rates, and storm sewer rates.
The lion's share of cost increases the past several years and going forward is relating to the capital improvement program within the utility fund. We are currently building a new treatment facility that's between $6 and $7 million that will bring one well we shut down back online and will ensure that we have treatment of several other wells that could be in danger the same way that well was. Also in the capital plan is a second treatment facility for the southeast Edina area that again is another approximately $7 million. Along with that is we are every time we look at doing a street reconstruction project, we are also looking at the condition of the water sewer, storm sewer within that, and that also is part of our capital improvement program, and the larger amounts going forward in the future.
So all these capital improvements have created pressure on our utility funds, is that correct?
That's correct, Edina. Much of our infrastructure, whether it was lift stations or treatment facilities or the infrastructure that's in the ground, Edina really was largely built in 50 years ago. Much of this infrastructure is coming to its end life. 50 years on much of that equipment is what you're going to get out of lift stations, treatment facilities, and those types of things. So it's a timing issue in that a younger city would not have at this point where you're looking at the amount of infrastructure that we are changing out, but we also are doing it proactively to where we're doing it before everything breaks down. We're doing it before we have, if we have a very busy, a very dry summer, and we're running the wells and treatment facilities on a constant basis. If that infrastructure is ready to fail, it will fail at that point in time.
All right. So it's the city's goal, as I understood from the effort that we went through with this rate study and the discussions we had with our financial advisors, it's the city's goal to reduce the issuance of debt in the long term.
That's correct.
We've been relying on debt to do some of this improvement work that needed to be done because of the aging infrastructure. And the rate study showed that with these increases and then monitoring our rate study over time, we'd be able to pay more effectively in the future on a pay-as-you-go basis instead of relying on debt.
That's correct. It won't eliminate the debt going forward, but we would rely on more and more on the fees to pay those to pay some of the capital without having to go to debt.
All right. Member Bennett.
Director Houle, we've been following this water treatment plant construction, which is in the parking ramp behind Jerry's. Where are the wells located that are going to be treated at this new facility, and then directly what neighborhoods will be benefited by that, the completion of that plant.
Councilmember Bennett and Council, the wells that'll be feeding that new treatment plant, which is basically in the very lower level of the Grandview or Jerry's Ramp, is there's a well down at 50th and Wooddale that will be, actually they're starting the piping this week of bringing that a pipe up to that treatment plant from that well. The other one would be at Sherwood Park, our well number 7, that actually gave us our first indication that we haven't had an issue with the groundwater up in the northern part of Edina. The well at Mirror Lakes Drive and Interlochen. And then there's a well that's just south of Benton on Hanson Road. And actually we'll be connecting 2 of the wells this summer and then following another project of connecting the other 2 wells. And what that's going to do is there's a plume of that contains some vinyl chlorides that is encroaching from the north, and what that'll do is create a hydraulic barrier essentially to keep that plume from migrating south to our other wells. And we've been working since I think it was 2005, I believe it is, when we shut down the well number 7 or the Sherwood Park with the PCA and their consultants to develop this plan. And actually the design of our treatment plant was actually picked up, the cost of that or the funding of that was picked up by the MPCA, which is about equivalent of about $500,000 or more.
And if I may, I have one last question, and that's for Director Wallen and City Manager Neal, and that is, with this other issue, with the city usage and enterprise usage, is this, I would strongly prefer that this is something that we can take up early next year, particularly given the time lag that Director Wallen describes for analyzing the information. Can that be done?
Certainly, yeah.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion as stated, say aye. First
Aye.
reading.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Carried. Thank you.
I just have one comment on this, and we're talking about the infrastructure and what it takes and the load that is put on it. In 2010, for the year, groundwater wells in Edina pumped 2.5 billion gallons of water. And, I mean, that number is staggering. I can't even imagine. Well, I can't imagine because I went online today to find out how big is that. It's a fifth of Lake Minnetonka. It's half of Lake Calhoun. And they are each, Lake Calhoun is 133 feet deep and Lake Minnetonka is 134 feet deep. And I'm just kind of going, it's hard for me to even imagine that much water. Being someone who conserves, I just kind of go, holy cow. But that is the drain on the infrastructure, is to provide that much water to the businesses and the residents of our city. So when you're wondering why you're paying what you're paying, why we're all paying what we're paying, that's why we're doing it.
Thank you. And Director Wallen, the rate study is posted on the website for folks if they want to take a look at it?
It will be. I was waiting for action tonight before that happens, but it'll be up as soon as we can get it.
All right. Thank you.
With the correction?
With the corrections, yes.
Thank you.
Next is proposed ordinance 2011-15, a regulation of coal tar-based sealer products. And Jesse Struve from our engineering department has this matter. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Appreciate the time this evening to discuss the proposed amendment to Chapter 4 of the City Code by adding Section 490, which is regulating the use of coal tar-based sealer products. The addition to the current City Code is modeled after the League of Minnesota Cities model ordinance to ban the use of coal tar-based sealant products within the city of Edina. Research by the United States Geological Survey, or the USGS, and the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency show coal tar-based sealant products are a significant source of, this is going to be a mouthful, so I'm going to refer to it by an acronym after I say it once, polycystic aromatic hydrocarbon, or PAHs, to our environment. Furthermore, PAHs are labeled as a probable human carcinogen and can pose negative health and environmental effects. Not only does the presence of PAHs have negative environmental components, but it also has financial impacts to local municipalities. PAHs bind themselves to sediment and are deposited in ponds, lakes, and streams by stormwater runoff. When cities such as ourselves perform maintenance on these ponds, high pH concentrations make it difficult and expensive to remove and dispose of the sediment buildup. High pH concentrations can delay permits and can easily double the maintenance costs of our ponds. There is a viable alternative to coal tar-based sealants in asphalt-based sealants, which contain approximately 1/65 of the pH amount. Currently, the city no longer uses coal tar-based sealants. We discontinued their use in approximately 2009. And finally, the proposed changes were approved by the Energy and Environment Commission at their September 8th, 2011 meeting. I would recommend that you grant the first reading of ordinance 2011-15.
Questions for Mr. Stube? Member Brindle?
Hi, Jesse.
Hello.
Looking around at driveway sealants, I didn't find any that are coal tar based. Are coal tar based sealants still available that this becomes necessary?
Many commercial people that apply it still use coal tar based sealants. Many places, I believe Home Depot, Ace Hardware, Menards, no longer sell coal tar based sealants, so a lot of the do-it-yourselfers in Edina would have difficulty. It's still possible to find it, but it's more when you hire out to contractors that this would come into play more.
Okay. How can we enforce this ordinance? How can we find out before they use it in order to tell them to use something else?
Well, the enforcement would be on a residential complaint basis. I mean, the ordinance will be in place. We'll notify all the applicant or the appliers, but the actual enforcement, we would have to catch them in many cases as they're applying it or shortly after. So it would be on a residential complaint basis.
Okay.
Other questions for Jesse? All right, we're not plowing new ground here. I take it, I noticed.
No, there's approximately 10
other cities that are doing this.
Correct.
Minnesota, and you got a statewide ban in Washington, and Dane County, Wisconsin, Austin, Texas, and Washington, D.C. So,
correct.
You see this as a future trend?
I do. Even there have been, the PCA has been exploring a statewide ban, but they've kind of left it as, leave it up to local municipalities to pass their own ordinances at this time. But the research, I do anticipate many more cities continuing forward with the coal tar ban.
And the Energy and Environment Commission recommends the adoption of this ordinance?
They do.
Other questions for Jesse? Comments? You have a motion? Moved and seconded, we adopt ordinance 2011-15 regulating the use of coal tar-based sealer products. This is first reading. Does the motion maker want to waive second reading or include it in the motion?
Who seconded my motion?
I did.
Are you okay with that?
I am.
I will waive second reading.
Okay.
This motion includes a waiver of second reading?
Then do we need a roll call?
We do.
Member Brindle?
Aye.
Member Swanson?
Aye.
Member Bennett?
Aye.
Mayor Huffman?
Aye. All right. Thank you, Jesse.
If I might, there has been excellent information available on the state website. The commission provided links. That was very helpful. And then also the Star Tribune has reported on this recently, so there is information available in the popular press as well. That's all been helpful.
Thank you. All right, next is proposed ordinance 2011-16 involving recycling and solid waste. Jesse, welcome back.
Thank you. Pleasure to be back again. This is to discuss the proposed amendments to section 1300 of the city code regarding the collection and disposal of refuse and recyclables. The changes being proposed includes increasing the insurance requirements for refuse haulers. The current requirements do not correlate to surrounding community standards. City Attorney Roger Knudsen has reviewed the proposed requirements and feel that they would bring us in line with surrounding communities. When source-separated compostable material programs become more prevalent throughout the city, the code changes will require the hauler to provide a cart for such materials when requested by the customers. Current code for refuse collection requires a schedule of collection charges dependent on volume, meaning if you get a larger can, you have to pay a little bit more. The proposed code changes would not require the same fee-based schedule for source-separate compostable material containers. The EEC feels that this will promote a wider use of the program. In the intern, it will reduce the amount of refuse being collected to help meet one of the goals of the Green Step cities as well. Finally, the city currently receives information for residential recycling accounts from haulers. The code changes would expand their reporting requirements to include residential refuse amounts. All the changes were sent to the waste haulers, and staff received comments from them. Staff looked at the comments and took them into consideration and were responsive in changing a couple of the what they requested to reflect some of their concerns. This was brought in front of the Energy and Environment Commission, and they recommended the changes presented in your packet on June 9th, 2011.
Why don't you articulate some of those concerns and some of the changes that you made as a result of the expression of those concerns?
Most of the changes were reflected. We were going to request the number of accounts that they had, and so that we could kind of better correlate per resident what was being used. They deemed that that information was proprietary, so what we did is instead just have them provide a total poundage amount, and we know how many residents are in the city, so then we can do the math and still come up with that same number.
How about the insurance requirement? Did you get any?
We did not get much
that?
feedback from the insurance requirements. All the major haulers have insurance requirements that far exceed, generally speaking, what we're requiring, so that was not a point of issue.
All right. Member Swenson? No comment. Anyone else? Member
I have
Brindle?
yes, I have a couple questions. So what we're asking of the haulers is some information about what they're collecting, how much they're collecting, right?
Correct, yeah. We
Okay.
currently have them supply us with recycle amounts for residential, and we're going to expand that to how much garbage they actually collected. Right now, we get the information from Hennepin County, but it's on a county-wide amount, and so then they relay that down to per person or per household in Hennepin County. So that doesn't give us
Doesn't give
necessarily
us anything close enough to be accurate.
correct.
Yeah. The additional work that is going to be provided and required for them to provide this information, is that going to cause an increase in hauler fees, do you think? Have you gotten any indication of that at all?
I have not. I haven't been fully involved with this. Solvay's been more in it than myself. She did not relay any concerns about potential cost increases. All the haulers are required to submit similar reports to different agencies. And
Already?
Their biggest concern was now it's one more agency they have to submit reports to. So.
Right. So it's possible then, if they're already submitting reports, that they've already collected the data, and they would just be submitting another report in another format, maybe?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, that was, I think the first thing that shouted out at me is more work for them means possibly something additional as far as a processing fee or something that would come back to customers. But we'll see how that works. I don't know that there's a way around it, frankly, because Green Steps is important to us. And if this is part of Green Steps and helps us learn what's being hauled away, I guess one other question. One comment you just made was the possibility that there would be less refuse.
Correct. If more of the haulers, there's some changes that are happening with the PCA about where they can take the source-separated compostable material and what are the requirements of those sites. They're reviewing those regulations to kind of lessen how much work they have to do at each site before they can bring this material there. And if that goes through, right now there's a pilot project where one hauler does a compostable
Yes.
program, and that may open up to more haulers depending on what happens with the rule regulations. And so what this is going to provide us is, okay, if those rules go through and more haulers open up, now we have something in our code to where if residents request for a can, for instance, that those haulers need to provide it if they have that program.
Okay, thank you.
Follow-up question, if I may. As someone who has for a couple of years now been able to recycle source-separated organics, I really do appreciate it, and it does reduce the volume of our trash. Why is this a goal to reduce the volume of trash? Can you describe some of the reasons why we are moving toward that goal?
Well, one of the steps in the Green Step program, I believe it's step 22, best management practice, step 22. With this Green Steps program, action 2 is adopt and meet aggressive goals for overall percentage diversion of currently deposited waste from city operations and recycling and organics collection. Right now, we don't have a very good way to measure even if these programs come into place, we don't have a good way to measure it because we are relying on information from Hennepin County, countywide. So this will provide us a method to where we can start now tracking our garbage usage, and then as these other programs potentially come online, we'll be able to then have data from before they started to show specifically, yes, we are meeting these goals and with some reductions.
Sure, and I do understand from news accounts and from information in the community that we have issues possibly not as great here as other parts of the country with landfills that are past their capacity. We have the Hennepin County burner. So do you have some information available on that? Because I would think that that's the ultimate goal of reduction, is not just to satisfy a green step, but also because that green step leads us toward a better quality environment to live in.
I would imagine, I do not have specific information related to that. I would imagine that's the root of why they want to kind of go to the source selection organic recycling.
I know this isn't a public hearing, but I wonder if there's anyone from the Solid Waste Working Group who's here who could speak on the issue, or is it the intention? Okay.
I don't think so. I think Jesse can handle it well.
Okay.
Did you have any concerns expressed to you about providing the yard waste containers so that people can do the source-separated compostable materials?
We did not. I mean, they did specify that in some cases there may be a fee for residents that request that, but for the actual containers, I don't recall any pushback.
Okay, good. I do see value in this, and in several different ways, one of which is the ability to at least get a rough idea of the tonnage that we're producing relative to solid waste. As you say, we're relying on those Hennepin County data numbers to kind of guesstimate the volume of solid waste that we produce, but if we're going to do anything about reducing the amount of solid waste or reducing the amount of water consumption, encouraging best practices in some of these areas, reducing carbon emissions, we've got to start somewhere, and this will give us a leg up, I think, on getting a baseline so that we can start to implement some strategies and get our residents encouraged and interested in developing some strategies as well.
Correct.
All right. Do we have a motion on this? I don't think we do.
Sure, I'll move the issue.
And would your motion include a waiver of second reading?
Yes, sir.
All right. We've got a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 2011-16 regarding collection and disposal of refuse and recyclables. Second reading has been waived by the motion. Roll call, please.
Member Swenson?
Aye.
Member Bennett?
Aye.
Member Brindle?
Aye.
Member Hovland?
Aye. You know, yesterday at the Regional Council of Mayors meeting, we had Rick Carter from LHB there talking about 3 cities. There were about 24 mayors there, and it was Falcon Heights, St. Louis Park, and Edina. And he had the data up that we've all seen with regard to carbon production, tonnage based on Hennepin County estimates, water usage, which turns out, even though it's a huge number, not unusual apparently for a city to consume that much water. But we're one of the first cities to start to make an attempt to try to get our baselines so that we can start some kind of reduction strategies. And I think this is a great step on the solid waste side of things, so thank you for your work on that. And they're hoping now in the future that they can get this work done city by city for about $2,500. They can get all their baseline work done with some grants that are going to be available. So I think folks are encouraged about that. All right, next matter on the agenda is the proposed conversion of some fireplaces down at Centennial Lakes. And Manager Neal has this matter.
I do. Thank you, Your Honor. There was a joint session between the City Council and the Energy and Environment Commission on September 20th, at which I'm told you had a discussion about this matter. I was not in attendance that night, so I can't remind you about it. But there was a discussion about it, and I believe that there seemed to be some coalescing around the goal of converting these fireplaces. There was a concern about cost. At least one of your concerns was cost. As it turns out, the 3 fireplaces, 2 interior fireplaces, 1 exterior fireplace, have all previously been plumbed with natural gas starters. So the expensive part of a conversion process has really already happened. The gas is plumbed to those fireplaces. So to fully convert to natural gas is really a pretty modest amount anyway, very small compared to the other expenses that we have at Centennial Lakes. So I think that concentrating on the cost of it or the cost savings of it is probably not the main issue. It's probably more an issue of mood and tradition and other kinds of issues versus the public health issues that you've had previously discussed. We have this on your agenda tonight for discussion and direction. And if the direction is to staff to make this conversion, we can make it fairly quickly and, as I said, at a pretty modest cost.
Questions for Manager Neal? Comments?
I'll start. I spoke with Tom Shirley today, as we've been talking about this, and there really are no complaints about the wood-burning fireplaces. We hear a letter here and a letter there, but I don't know that of the letters we've received, if I look at unique authors of letters, it's 5, maybe 6, who are interested in switching the fireplaces over. But Centennial Lakes is such a special place, and the fireplaces and the fact that they burn wood, the atmosphere and the mood that they create, and that's part of the reason people go there. So I would not be in favor of this.
Member Bennett.
More people have spoken to me than they have to you, apparently, about it. And one of the things that I hear and get from people is that when it's described as one person's issue or one loud person's issue or whatever, I think that's very inhibiting to people, to their ability to speak on their own behalf and about their own needs and concerns. I think that the job of this body, one of the jobs of this body, is to work for balance in a community. It's a balance between an existing homeowner's right and the right of the people who own the property next door to remodel or to build. It is a balancing of commercial interests to residential interests when we have so many neighborhoods that are right next to commercial areas. And to me, this is one of those issues of balance where we're not talking about private property and we're not talking about private homeowners or property owners' rights. We're talking about a public park that ideally should be open and accessible to all. And from our survey, we know that it's one of the top 3 venues in our city that actually is visited by our residents, the others being neighborhood parks and the trails in the city. So we know that it's special. We know that it's unique. We know that it's very visited. I want to my goal would be to see that there is not a barrier that is within our power to remove at little cost. And also, I do think it is a good step, a good statement for us to be making as a city. We do know that there is science available on this. We do know that there is impact on at least some of our residents. And again, I feel that that balancing is something that we can and should do. So I do favor the change.
Thank you. Member Swenson.
2 of the fireplaces are indoors. 1 is outdoors.
Sure.
I would support converting the 2 indoor ones. It is a space that we schedule things. I have a family that, for instance, can't go to a house that has an indoor fire because of allergies. So because those are indoors and they impact people that are coming, and I understand Member Brindle's point, I think that's where I come to this compromise of doing the 2 indoor ones because we hold events here, we rent it out. It's a facility we use, and when you're stuck indoors, it's an entirely different situation than the exterior one. Now, I know that the studies will tell me that that exterior smoke goes somewhere. But as a form of compromise, I might propose that we do the 2 inside ones and leave the outside one.
You could view this as a bit of a vexing problem. I mean, who doesn't like the smell of a nice wood-burning fireplace? But I think we've all come to realize over time that there are some things going on from a public health standpoint that we really didn't anticipate. I think of Pinstripes, and they wanted to put in outdoor wood-burning fireplaces, and we convinced them the best route to go was with gas burning, and the guy couldn't be happier, frankly, if you've got the very practical reason that he doesn't have to have somebody running out there with wood. He doesn't have to have somebody selling him wood or storing wood, and then he's got these gas fireplaces that he runs summer and winter, accomplishing basically the same effect as a wood-burning fireplace. In a sense, this is a little bit to me like the early days of the smoking ban activity. And this council took a lead from a public standpoint, from a public property standpoint, of saying we need to think about public health, and we banned smoking in parks. You know, now it's a complaint-driven sort of situation. I see plenty of guys having a cigar out at Braemar. Nobody says anything really, but there's a message there that's important, I think, that people understand that at least on public property, you're making a statement that's in the best interests of public health. And frankly, I see no discernible difference from an aesthetic effect between the gas fireplaces and the wood-burning fireplaces. I make no judgment whatsoever as to private property rights, fireplace pits on private property, fireplaces indoors. I think that's a whole different issue. But I think we've had our level of awareness raised about the danger of wood-burning fireplaces, and I think we should contemplate doing something that's in the interests of public health at these 3 locations. I think, to me, it seems disingenuous to tell the guy at the Pinstripes that he has to put in gas-burning fireplaces, and we only we convert none or some of our fireplaces to gas. So that's, I mean, you can see the complexity of this issue, which sounds, it looks kind of simple on its face, but you hear 4 people with, nuance on the opinion. So we're missing our colleague tonight. I don't know what he would say if he was here, but it leaves us in kind of a conundrum on where to go next. I suppose Member Swenson's compromise is one place we could start, see how it goes. If we're going to do it, I'd prefer to do them all, frankly. And I think they'd actually get a lot more use. I don't think I've ever been down there where I've seen that outdoor fireplace burning. Wintertime.
Wintertime with skating.
Indoors, I've seen it quite a bit. But.
And of late, they've had a couple of autumn weddings, and they've had it burning and they love it. So I would absolutely not change the outdoor. I wouldn't change any of them, but I wouldn't touch the outdoor.
So you wouldn't vote for the compromise?
No.
Okay. That's fine.
I think we're going to have to hold this conversation another day when we've got our 5th member here.
What?
Well, we can vote.
You can vote. I'll lose no matter what.
I do think the point about Pinstripes is a solid one. I mean, the location is approximately not identical, but darn close.
Within a quarter of a mile.
Within blocks, or a block.
Big blocks.
Big block, but it's the same housing across the lake, with deference to your feelings, Member Brindle, our neighborhood has been one of the neighborhoods that has hosted the winter nights out in cooperation with the Park and Rec Department, and the presence of a fire outdoors, a bonfire to which I contributed all of my stockpiled wood. And we have not converted our fireplace, we just don't use it. But that made it impossible for some people to be outside. So understanding that for you and many others that you know it's not an issue, I know people for whom it is an issue, and I would support the conversion of all 3. I don't think it would detract. I think the brides would not get soot on their wedding gowns.
I don't know. Well, let's go back to Member Swenson's proposal. How do you feel about taking a measured sort of approach and trying the 2 indoor ones first and leaving the outdoor one?
Well, what I favor is just taking steps, and if that's the only step that we can take, then I will favor taking that step. I would prefer the other step, but would, again, favor taking a step.
It's the outdoor one that probably, I don't know.
There is
It'd be
another
worthwhile,
avenue.
it would be worthwhile, I think it'd be worthwhile having consensus of the council on this. I don't know if we'll ever get there, but,
Well, there's another avenue. It's more expensive. And we have done this at our house. If you live in Colorado or Utah, you can burn wood, but your fireplace can't be open. It has to be a stove, if you will, that sits right in your fireplace with a stainless steel flue. And we have converted both of ours, and we burn wood in both of those. So that's another option. It's a more expensive option, but in an hour, the pollution that comes out is less than a single cigarette. So if you're looking at pollution abatement, reducing pollution, that's a great way to do it. And that's why we did it. But we still burn wood.
Make your own motion.
you make the motion and then we'll.
Well, I move that we do the two inside ones as a start. And if you want to continue the conversation for the third one later when you have members break here, that's fine. But my motion right now is to convert the two inside ones.
And I will second it for purpose of making progress.
Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay.
Nay.
All right. Thank you.
That gave you kind of an idea,
Yes.
Manager Neal.
We're on it.
Okay.
All right. The next matter you have as well, which is our discussion of our PACE grant from the state of Minnesota, and I think some commendation is in order for you, Manager Neal. You're getting high remarks, high praise from the members of the Energy and Environment Commission for the work that you've done on this.
Well, I would tell them not so fast. Only it's not reality until the council approves it. What you have before you tonight, thank you, Your Honor, but what you have before you tonight is something called the Edina Emerald Energy Program, which is a property assessed clean energy program called a PACE program. A PACE program is a program, this particular program that we have in front of you tonight is one that was adapted from a similar program that's been effective in Sonoma County, California. If adopted by the council tonight, it would be the first PACE program in Minnesota that's been put into place. And in that sense, as you commented, it is getting a fair amount of attention, and I think there are both government and private sector folks that are interested in seeing how this works. And how it works is really not all that complicated. It works very much like a special assessment, any other special assessment program that this city and many other cities have used for many years. The only difference is you're special assessing private improvements to private property, which is different and which is sort of at the heart of PACE. But the property is secured by, but the investment, the special assessments that are used to finance the project improvements are financed by special assessments on private property. But they're special assessments nonetheless. They work just like any other special assessment that we might have. And the only other difference I'd say is that right now this is structured as a kind of project by project sort of basis. Instead of doing special assessments over a neighborhood and having to prove value and benefit from those special assessments, the agreement that the city attorney has drafted for us would allow us to proceed on an agreed-upon basis where the applicant waives all their rights, and that's pretty common for cities to use that kind of tool as well. The original, I'll tell you a couple things about the Sonoma County program. Their program had a couple components in it that this proposal does not. First, it had, as it probably won't surprise you, a pretty substantial water conservation aspect to it. I did not include that in this proposal because it is not something that we've had much discussion on in this state as it regards PACE. it might be something that we look at in the future, but I did not include it in this program at this time. The other aspect of their program I did not include was the residential component. There's a fair amount of discussion going on nationally about whether how a PACE program interacts with private mortgage lenders, particularly with Fannie Mae, and Fannie Mae's been active in objecting to PACE programs, because really PACE, when a PACE program is put into place and a PACE grant, or excuse me, a PACE loan is put into place, it really puts itself in a position that's higher than a private mortgage in terms of a default situation. So that's why for the city, it's really a strong value anchor for us. If there is a default situation, we might not get paid right away, but we ultimately always get paid when there are property taxes delinquent or special assessments delinquent. PACE debt that's incurred under this program does not impact the city's debt capacity. So it does not count against that 3% limit that Minnesota cities must stay within. We are well within our debt capacity limits, but these bonds, because they are special assessment bonds or private improvement revenue bonds, they do not count against that debt limit. That's the basics about this program. The intent of it is to create a financing mechanism that will foster more development, and particularly solar and energy efficiency investments in private property, and it does it through the use of our municipal special assessment system. And I'd be happy to take any questions that anyone has on the program itself.
Do you want to comment about the private property owner who wants to serve as a demonstration project in 2012?
Thank you, Your Honor. And I will also, I left out the item that this item, it's on an expedited timeline for you, because there is a property owner in the Grandview district who wishes to take advantage of this program as soon as possible this calendar year. So that property owner has been working with the EEC and desires strongly to be considered as a demonstration project for this year. And so that's why we had the compressed timeline where this went to the EEC for a review and endorsement, which it got last Thursday and is on your agenda yet tonight. So that normally we'd have a little bit more time in between those two events, but that's where we are tonight. And this, Councilmember Bennett gave me a couple edits of the document, and if you have other edits we can make that are non-material to what's trying to be accomplished here. But we will make those and put it into final format. But we do have this property owner that's interested in moving ahead, and that's why it's on your agenda tonight.
And then the grant requires our action tonight as well.
That's the next item on your agenda, right?
Okay.
So if you do approve this tonight, we can go forward with item G. If you don't approve this tonight, item G is not necessary.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Council comments, or do we have a motion?
I have some questions.
Should we take a motion and a second first, and then go to discussion and questions?
I will move the issue.
All right. Now let's go to discussion and questions.
All right. In introduction, let's see here, program administration. It says the EAP program administrator is authorized, so there will be, is this a new person on staff, or is this an existing, a duty for an existing staff member?
It's a duty for an existing staff member sitting in the front row of our building.
There he is. Yeah. Okay, and it says the program administrator will oversee professionals from the city finance department. For what purpose?
For the purpose of receiving the application and having it reviewed and and moving it through the financing process.
So they would not oversee professionals, they would oversee an application.
I would say that's true. I would say they would work with.
They'd work with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Then we go down to program requirements. This may be part of what you might have already received, but under eligible property owners and eligible properties, it says property owners may be individuals, associations, business entities. If it's not residents, then should we strike individuals from this?
You are in, is it section C?
C, eligible property owners. If we're not going to open this to residents yet.
I would
Well,
think.
individual could own a
Would be a-
business.
right.
I mean, you don't have to be a corporation.
Okay, all right, okay, I'll take that.
The applicable, I think the relevant sentence in that section is only property classified as commercial industrial by the city assessors eligible.
So I
for
wonder if
registration.
we even need the first sentence.
You do, because it could be a variety of different types of owners
Okay,
of commercial and industrial property.
all right,
And you want to define that universe of owners.
all right. And I guess my last question is, the business that wants to be the model, I guess, for lack of a better word, is that Grandview Terranado?
I believe that's right.
And that's the, but it's not the facility in the Grandview District. It's the one at 70th and Cahill,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
I think.
You
I
know,
was
Tim
mistaken
owns
about
both
that.
of them.
Right.
But his son, Rick, is the gentleman who's been here.
Yeah.
And that's the one. Okay, all right, that's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
Member Bennett.
Yes, thank you. Some questions and some concerns. I think this has come to us with a lot of enthusiasm. I would have liked to have had a work session where we could have spent some time talking with the members of the EEC about it and sort of have maybe a longer discussion with more points of view able to be expressed in them. But I do appreciate the information that's been put in front of us. Could you walk us again through what happens with the liability? What is the order of priority if there is a, for instance, foreclosure on a property?
If there is a foreclosure, our special assessment under the PACE program has the same priority in that system as any other special assessment under Chapter 429, which is or right after delinquent property taxes or similar to delinquent property taxes.
Okay, and the mortgage comes?
Ahead of private mortgages.
Okay, so any mortgage comes first, next would be?
No, no, sir.
Oh, it's ahead of, okay, so it's
government gets
property
paid
taxes,
first.
okay. All right. With that order of priority, what is the contemplated size of these assessments relative to what would be a typical assessment for instance, street reconstruction?
The relative size of these assessments, the proposed improvements should not exceed 10% of the assessed value of the property, so that's in total. And our proposal is that they be assessed for not more than 10 years of time.
Okay. So they could be larger by a lot.
They could,
than street reconstructions. And who determines, I made note of the assurance that there was, part of the cost of the program was that it wasn't going to, or the benefit of the program was that it was not going to require an assessor. But if we need to know, the administrator needs to know the property value so as to determine whether or not the project cost fits within that 10% guideline, how does that valuation get determined?
We would use their assessed valuation, their current assessed valuation.
So, right, but is commercial and industrial property assessed yearly? Because I know with residents, it's a 5-year, I think, program with, I know the assessments are on the books, but in terms of a verification or an updating.
It has a current, people may update their value with private assessors frequently, but we would use, well, I guess we don't say here. We could use the value that we have, which is the current assessed value of the property.
Right, but in certain instances, that may or may not track the market I know that legally, we try to track it closely, we need to track it closely, but I guess the assurance that it wasn't going to require assessment, but the tying of the amount of the commitment to the assessed value gives me some concern.
Would you say that again, please?
One of the benefits of the program is supposed to be that it doesn't require the property owner to get an assessment. And yes, we have a city assessment on the books, but for the potential size of encumbrance, I'm concerned about what it puts the city in the business of ensuring in terms of the valuation of the property. We want to make sure we're making, well.
We're still just a conduit.
Yes.
And so somebody downstream that's going to help fund this is going to rely on the lien against the property instead of the promise of the borrower to secure their basically their loan to do this project, as I understand it.
Well, this may be a better way to ask the question that I asked earlier, and is Manager Neal has assured us that we may have to wait for our money, but we would get it eventually. What is the length of time we have waited for property taxes when there has been a foreclosure on a commercial property?
Boy, I don't know if Mr. Wallen is prepared to answer that question, but I don't know. What the average time or the maximum time?
Well, sort of the range. I mean, what could we be waiting for?
Are you worried that we somehow be deprived of property taxes because of this PACE program? And the guy goes bankrupt or somehow defaults on something?
Right, and even though we may eventually see it, I mean, I know of an instance right now where we have a concern regarding a commercial and industrial property owner and utility bills. And yes, the bills and arrears have been certified to property taxes, but we're concerned that if he doesn't stay in business, we may never see that money. How would this program differ from the concerns that we have in that regard?
With this program would not differ that much in the concerns that you have in this regard, except that you're agreeing to limit the size of you're agreeing to limit the size of the assessed value that you are using as a guide for how much or what the size of the PACE loan would be. For example, in that case, one of the concerns we've had is that our assessments have now equal to or maybe even exceed the value, the assessed value of the property. That's one of the concerns that staff have. In this program, we're not getting anywhere near that level of encumbrance. We're trying to limit that encumbrance to 10%, not 50 or 100.
Plus the taxes would still be priority number one.
Right.
So the taxes would be ahead of the special assessment, which would be ahead of the mortgage. Everything would be subordinated to the repayment of taxes. Is that correct, Roger?
That's correct.
So we could still have the same problem getting taxes out of a piece of property, but when it gets foreclosed on and sold, we're first in line.
Well, and I've never practiced bankruptcy law. What happens to property taxes in bankruptcy?
Nothing.
So you got the foreclosure,
Nothing.
They
If they're
can't
imposed,
be discharged.
they're a lien against the property, just like a mortgage generally doesn't go away. It's a lien against the property.
And we don't write them off. We wait them out.
You can go bankrupt, but your property taxes aren't going to go away, and your special assessments aren't going to go away. it's something, it's kind of a bit of a fiction. It's, the property is obligated to pay it, the property owner, whoever owns it. It's an encumbrance on the property.
It's a lien.
Yeah?
So it's a lien, and when the property is sold, it gets paid then.
If there's positive
I mean,
proceeds from
there
the
is,
sale.
if there's a risk, it's,
Well,
when the property, if you don't
It
pay your
doesn't matter,
taxes.
we're still first position.
We're still first
Yeah,
position.
the bank is the one that could get burned. If a property that was appraised at 100 and sold for 50, we're still going to be first in line.
We're going to be ahead of the bank.
We'll be ahead of the bank, we'll be ahead of the special assessment.
Taxes are, sure.
is there any other city in Minnesota that uses this program right now?
No.
No.
And how long has it been in existence in Sonoma County?
How long has it been in existence in Sonoma County? I do not know the answer to that. I think it has, yeah, I don't know the answer to that. It has been authorized in law here since 2010. But
Well,
in
when we were, Manager Neal, when we were over at the Franken gathering, where we talked about PACE, there was a banker there from Sonoma who'd been involved in this program, and my sense was he'd been involved in this program for several years, where he was a lender through the conduit of the special assessment. So I think they've been doing it for at least a few years out there with some real positive success.
Yeah, it's Sonoma County. I don't see a date where they've started, but they've processed 2,300 applications. They have approved 1,700 applications, and they've funded contracts worth $53.4 million. That's the activity ending October 31st, 2011.
Again, the administrator is so the administrator is responsible for setting a valuation for the property. The administrator is responsible for determining that the proposed work is no more than 10% of that assessed value, and the administrator determines whether or not the value of the work is reasonable given the property value?
I would say what we have in here as a guideline is that proposed improvements should not exceed 10% of assessed value. Assessed value is determined by the city assessor. So the purpose, the program administrator's job is to review the application, to seek the information from the assessor's office about what the assessed value is, and to compare those, to make the mathematical comparison to see what percentage of that value is being requested.
Can you tell what kind of a guideline they're using out in Sonoma?
That one. That's the
same one.
Yep.
10%. The improvement can't. The proposed improvement shouldn't exceed 10% of the assessed value of the property.
Yeah, I think I'm comfortable with this based on the way it has to pay out on a bankruptcy situation to support it.
I think another important item that I would mention to you, a couple of them. This program does not, I mentioned it in the cover sheet, does not loan, we're not making a loan of public money to private people to do these improvements. We're asking them to bring their private financing to the table to finance this special assessment system. So not only do they have to find the contractor and get a project online and get it and do that aspect of it, but they also have to arrange the agreed upon special assessment bond, the financing aspects of it too. We are really, in that sense, the conduit. that makes this happen. And the special assessment powers under Chapter 429 are what we're using to make that financing happen. We are proposing a 2% markup of whatever the market rate is for the bonds. That 2% comes from existing council policy on conduit funding. That's where that number comes from. We have suggested an initial limit of $1 million a year in this kind of funding, just so we've got a way to have some element of control over it, so we can make sure we know how we're doing. We are proposing to include any legal fees, underwriting fees that we might have for the financing that the city might have. We would roll into the cost of the project and would be included as in the special assessment total.
So it's cost plus 2%?
Yes.
Right. Which is a bit like what we've done in the past with hospitals that need to
right.
run a bond through a city, and we end up with no risk to our bond rating or our borrowing limit, but we make a little bit of money on the swing. So,
are there parallels or comparisons between this and the housing improvement areas that we've discussed once as a council before, and maybe will come back to us?
Yeah, that's a great point, Councilmember Bennett. I think there are, because again, that is the city coming into an environment where we could provide public kind of conduit funding to help a private party accomplish something that they're having some trouble accomplishing right now. You know, accomplishing a large kind of collectivized project on a privately owned housing complex, new roof or fixing a pool.
We currently have a facility that would be interested for us. They've come before us once.
Yep.
And
we've had some discussions
it's very
about
familiar. That setup seems very familiar to this.
It is very similar to this.
That I'm more familiar with, I'm more comfortable with. I know of other cities, a number of other cities in the Twin Cities area that have been employing it very successfully, and it has helped them sustain relatively affordable housing. So that's why looking for that connection or that
it's a good analog. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Because the financing is secured by the property, not by the borrower. And that's the case in the HIAs as well.
So we have a motion?
I will move the matter.
We had a motion and a second.
Oh, we did?
Yeah, it's been a while. It's just on 8F.
Member Bennett, have you asked enough questions that I can call the question? How about that for a really gentle way of saying, are we done? Can we vote?
That's graceful. I appreciate
Okay.
that.
Call the,
Yes.
All right.
okay, call the question.
Been a motion to call the question. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of calling the question, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carried. Back to the main motion. All those in favor of the motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Reluctant traveler.
Yes. Well, support environmental improvements. I'm concerned about being a pioneer. There's good and not good to being the first one.
Yeah. I think your
Agreed.
point, though,
Understand. Yeah.
Member Bennett, in the similarity to the program for housing that is out there that has been used, that also gives me a better level of comfort in being a pioneer for this program, to be honest.
That has a lot of support in the communities that have used it.
Okay.
You're making me think of that quote by James Baldwin, and this is you making me think of it. The future is like heaven. Everyone exalts it, but no one wants to go there right now.
So now you.
But we're going.
Yeah. So now we have the PACE grant as our next.
And I will tell you that there are a lot of cities waiting to follow along behind. And so, Member Bennett, you're out in the lead traces on this one, and it'll be okay. All right, next matter is 8G, which is the proposed PACE grant from the state of Minnesota that requires some action tonight if we are going to accept it.
Thank you, Your Honor. And I apologize for, again, the compressed timeline on this item. We received the documentation from the state yesterday, and so we got it out to you late yesterday, and so we've got it out to you as quickly as we could. This is, I don't know how to characterize it other than the federal government has a classification of grants that they call special purpose grants, and it's just like it sounds. And I might characterize this as a special purpose grant from the Department of Commerce at the state government. They have been aware that we've been working on this program. They know that there are going to be some administrative legal costs to get it finalized and set up, and they have very graciously offered us this $10,000 grant to defray those costs, and it actually will cover about all of our internal costs to do the setup of the program. And they've offered us this, and if you wish to accept it, we should act on it tonight. It doesn't bind us to do anything other than to spend the money on the administrative establishment of the program and to give them a little credit when we talk about the program publicly.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. All right. This was the all-environmental night. All right, we've got a resolution accepting donations.
So move.
Thanks. 8H. All right, moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say nay. Carried. Donations this reporting period: Edina Arts Center, Braemar Golf Course Memorial Fund for golf course equipment, Edina Park Department in memory of Dale Nelson, to be used for a bench at Courtney Fields Baseball Complex. And that came from Christine and Andrew Mullman, Frederick and Sarah Haberman, Christina and Nicholas Jermahov, and Leslie Kraus. Thank you all. Edina Park Department, a very nice grant from Margie Brandt, almost $5,500 for landscaping and trees for York Park. And Edina Police Department got a grant from the Crime Fund for $20,000. So thank you all, and thank all the organizations as well. All right, and now we are at correspondence and petitions. We've received a petition requesting sound mitigation on the west side of Trunk Highway 100. And Wayne, you'll take that under advisement. This is something that's resurfaced after about 10 years, 8 years. Yeah. All right, and then correspondence. Anything other than what we have on the dais this evening?
No, not anything more than what's on the dais.
All right. Okay. And no last-minute pieces of correspondence coming in? Nothing came in on your computer that we need to know about?
No.
All right.
So are we discussing the letter?
I want to raise that during my
comment.
Yeah.
I just wondered when you were going to bring it up.
That was my hesitation. You hadn't seen this until you sat down tonight, but it is on the dais, but I'll address it during my comments.
All right, good. And we'll start with Member Swenson.
Silent.
All right. Member Bennett.
Which is unusual.
It's been a full evening.
The next time that we will be together will be the first meeting in December, so I wish everyone a happy and safe Thanksgiving. And I do have a couple things, but they can wait. Always interested in better pedestrian access around Southdale, so that's my thing.
All right, great, thanks. Just one kind of new thing. The Regional Council of Mayors was asked to have a person designated to sit on the Greater MSP Partner Advisory Group. And the Regional Council of Mayors asked me to sit on it. So I went to the first meeting yesterday. There were about 45 people there from all 13 counties and a lot of different organizations, both public, private, and nonprofit. It's going to be an interesting experience. So, and then Seal, one more time. Thanks for all your great service all these years, and we wish you all the best. And we had that little colloquy upstairs. That was funny. That was fun, and it was good to see you lively on that. So, and just really appreciate all your great work, especially I think for all of us, most recently was in the transition from Gordon to Scott, and you gave us a steady hand there to help us get through that process. So thanks very much. All right, and Manager Neal.
I think, Karen, while you set up, I'll do a couple other things. We have a new concession stand at Edinburgh, and it is up and functioning right now, but it has a grand opening on Saturday, December 3rd. So I hope if you have a chance, if you can't be there that day, all day. That's grand opening day. But it's a big. No, not that I know of. It's a big. At 9 o'clock, you know this?
Oh,
Okay.
I think so.
All right. That's more than I knew.
They'll have
Yeah.
coffee. They have great coffee.
We have had 3 Citizen League budget workshops. We're going to have one more. And we're going to do it on November 29th in the evening from 6:30 to 8:30 at Braemar Golf Course in the Braemar Room. And we're trying to actively solicit folks to come. So we're going to look at sending it to lists that we already have, so including all of our own board and commission members, directly soliciting them, and as many of the youth sports organizations as we have, because we talk a lot about recreation enterprises at this session. If you are available and can attend, we've really had a pretty interesting time when we've done these, and I think it's been valuable feedback. I do want to ask council if you have availability for a rare daytime work session. You don't have to answer me tonight, but I will ask Terry Wilson to contact you. But we're looking at trying to do something on November 29th, sometime during the day. It's a Tuesday. We have 2 issues that we want to put in front of you that day to get your feedback and to get, I don't know if we'll ask you to make a decision that day, but we'll certainly want to get some input from you. One is 50th in France and parking structure remodeling projects, and also Simon and what they want to do at Southdale. So those are the 2 issues, but we'll have some interaction with you to talk about that directly.
May I request that we consider making it a late afternoon meeting so it would lead into the budget meeting for those of us who plan to attend the budget meeting?
I'm game for that.
I'm subject to others'
Yeah.
requests, but that would be my preference.
Okay.
What time did you say the budget meeting would start?
6:30 to 8:30. So, maybe we do 4 to 6 or something. I've got a couple other items, but I think at this point I'll turn it over to Karen. I want to tee this up for her. She's going to give you a presentation about an initiative called LEAN that we have been working with our building inspections department with. Mayor kind of foreshadowed this upstairs during our work session. I can tell you that when I arrived here, that one of the very common things that I picked up from residents who called me was about building inspection plan reviews and why do they take so long and what's happening and how do we get informed about what's happening. And, there's a lot of reasons for why they take as long as they do. But we weren't doing a great job of explaining that reasoning and rationale to the customers that we were working with. So there was, I think fair to say a level of hostility there that wasn't healthy for the city. And so I was aware of this lean government program at Anoka Ramsey Community College and had seen a couple of presentations about them. We brought them in to take a look at our systems that we have here. Karen was involved in sort of learning the process and observing, and she's here tonight to give a presentation on what that process was like for us, what lean is, and what we expect to change because of it. So, Karen.
To come up here. This was one of the first things I got to work on when I joined the city, and it was a great project. It was great to be able to meet some of our building inspections staff. This project really focused on commercial remodels and that particular element of the building permitting process. And when you look at lean generally, it's a concept that originated from Toyota. And at its most simplest definition, it's preserving value with less work. And values defined in the eyes of the customer, what's of value to the customer. And it's been out there in manufacturing for a long time, along with quality movement and continuous improvement movements, but it's just maybe in the last decade or so that it's been more actively applied to office settings and to the government sector. And so when you look at it in terms of a non-manufacturing environment, such as our building inspections department, the definition's a little different. But I'm just going to hit a few highlights here. Again, it's about a customer-focused approach. And rather than being a group of managers getting together and sort of dictating downward, I would also describe it as very much a grassroots approach, where you're really pulling together the people that are dealing with the process day in and day out and getting their involvement and input. And lastly, it's a continuous improvement process where you're really looking for, it's not necessarily going to be one big idea that you stumble across, but it's going to be perhaps a series of small things that lead to a great impact. And then last couple of things, determining performance metrics is an important part of the process. And then also using a systems approach. So if you have a process that involves several departments or divisions within your organization, you're going to pull all those individuals to the table to have them work on the project. So for us, this was our team in terms of looking at the commercial remodel. And just in terms of the process then overall for our organization, it started with training for the team in terms of what lean is. And then we did what's called a swim lane map, which is where you map out what your current process is, where delays occur, where trade-offs occur. And that's harder than you think. That was actually very interesting, and we learned a lot during the course of that process about where people handle things differently. From that, there was brainstorming in terms of ideas and prioritizing of those ideas. And then the team actually divided up into smaller groups, and we worked on specific action items. From there, we went out to test the concepts, and that involved calling customers and asking them for their feedback in terms of both what they thought, in terms of what was going on with our department, but then also testing the ideas that we had come up with them. And then today we actually just had our last session, and that involved some customer service training and then also starting to try and identify what those performance metrics are going to be moving forward. And this is just a snapshot of what that swim lane map looked like, and I think you might remember it from one of the work sessions we had upstairs being on the wall. And so then just in terms of some of the action items that came out of the process, one was, again, just creating consistency is a big theme in lean. And so for the building inspections group, just to have a set agenda and action items that they want to cover whenever they meet with a architect or contractor at their 30%, 60%, and 90% design review meetings. Another thing was to create a checklist. One of the themes that was identified is that frequently when the building permit applications come in, they have incomplete data, and then that slows down the entire process. And so the hope was that by providing a checklist, then the customer is going to have a clear understanding of what the expectations are, and then hopefully that will expedite things. Offering a video conference option. Sometimes the individuals that we're working with are not necessarily here in Edina or even the metro area. And again, if everybody has an opportunity to come to the table and hear what's being shared, that too can ease the process. Standardizing plan review comments. Conducting an immediate check of the application when it comes in. So rather than having the application come in a queue, waiting to be reviewed and sitting for a couple of weeks, and then only to find out it doesn't have everything it needs and then being sent back, which is a source of frustration for the customer, why not catch that on the front end, again, to expedite the process. Setting aside uninterrupted time each day for plan review. Another thing that I think our customers will like a lot is a status tracking spreadsheet, which is now going to be on our website. So if they've submitted an application for a permit, they will be able to go on, look at that spreadsheet, and see where it's at in the process and when the expected date is for the design review. We're going to be adding some how-to videos on the website, just as education tools again. And then lastly, it was a housekeeping item, because again, that's one of those small things that can slow you down, but we needed to do some cleanup of old files and also some delegation of some tasks to free up some time for our plan reviewers. And that's the quick summary.
Questions for Karen? Comments?
Sounds great.
Yeah, I love the notion of it, and it's good to get more detail on it. It seems like we're going to end up with a pretty transparent process. People are going to be able to track where they are on the application, on the application flow chart, I guess is one way to put it. Is
Absolutely.
that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then you don't have this situation prevailing where it's not us. It's maybe something happened between the architect and the developer or the contractor, or somebody's telling somebody a different story over there. I mean, this should really help clear up exactly what the factual situation is and make sure that it's well understood by everybody. So, Member Bennett.
Is there an intention or plan to eventually apply this to residential plan reviews as well as to the commercial plan reviews?
I think that some of the tools that were developed as part of the commercial process can also be applied to the residential process. I don't know that we've talked specifically about timelines for that, or if it would be necessary to re-engage a consultant.
Is there some predictability on how long it should take for a commercial project to be approved for a building permit?
Well, I think
I suppose
that's...
it depends on the size of the project, and if it was a hospital, that's far different from a 4,000 square foot office building.
That's exactly what I heard in terms of our staff, that there's a wide degree of variability. But commercial remodels tend to be the most complex thing that they deal with.
But nonetheless, it seems to me that there ought to be some targets that they should be trying to hit in terms of accomplishing certain things by certain times, whether it's the person or company seeking the building permit, or it's our folks internally getting their work done, or guiding people that need to get things done.
Yes, and we did discuss some targets.
All right, thank you. All right, any other questions for Karen, comments? Yeah, great job. Thanks, Manager Neal, as well, for...
Thank you. I have two more items on my agenda for you, and thank you, Mr. Carpenter, for hanging in there tonight. We have Mr. Carpenter is here tonight on to observe this, I'll say, but the Edina Swim Club wishes to appeal to the council a decision of the park board, and the park board made a decision last week about the allocation of pool time among two competing swim clubs. The Edina Swim Club wishes to appeal that decision to you. That was made clear to them at the meeting of the park board when this occurred that would be their option. They have submitted a written appeal, and that's what's in front of you tonight. A couple options you have tonight if you wish to just allow the decision of the park board to stand as issued. You can do that, or you can take this up and you can consider their appeal and consider the issues just as you would as if you were reviewing a planning commission matter, on a variance issue or something like that, and then make a decision based on the facts as you see them. That's what I would recommend that you do, and if you do wish to do that, we would get some briefings for you and put this out probably into your December 6th or December 20th meeting.
Does this then become, if we follow the latter process, does it reach a level of being a public hearing, or is it just a contested case hearing?
I don't know that we have a firm practice of answering that question, but I would tell you that I think that you could make a decision on this issue based on written submissions from both parties, and also
without any oral
advice
argument.
I think you could, Mr. Mayor.
I see our attorney Knutson nodding that is the most logical course.
There's no legal requirement for a public hearing.
Yeah. Well, I think that's good in this circumstance. But nonetheless, the next sort of tier down from that for me would be, do we want to deal with this solely on written submissions, or would we want to hear some arguments from each side relative to this matter before we made a decision? It's the only other thing I'd raise with the council, and I'm perfectly open either way.
Well, because the Park and Rec Department actually had a recommendation, similar to in planning, where the planning department has a recommendation, and their recommendation wasn't what the park board followed. We already have the setup that we would normally have in a variance situation. So to me, it's written, and we either uphold the park board's decision or we uphold Park and Rec's recommendation.
Anybody else have a thought about how expansive to make this appeal in terms of whether it should be written submissions, only written submissions plus a chance to argue, each side argue its position for 5 minutes, and have staff give us a setup on it?
I would be very comfortable, given, I think, some of the issues that I'm aware of, to see written materials. I will plan to watch the park board meeting, and I know we have options on either the city's website or YouTube, and also we'll look at written materials. We'll certainly consider any correspondence that comes in, but there is a record. So I suppose once it's set on, that date would be known, and people are free to welcome to send emails, send letters, but I'm content to consider a written record. I think it will be clear.
Do we know, because I have not yet watched the park board meeting, do we know if while watching that we can see representatives from each of the organizations and hear what they have to say?
No, because it's not a complete record of what was going on. So you can watch the park board meeting and get an essence for what the park board says, but it isn't a very accurate representation of the content on the two sides. So I would not use that. I would use what you get as written information in conjunction with what maybe park board people, how they responded. It was not an official public hearing. It wasn't really,
Well,
what about, go ahead, finish your thought.
Well, and I've talked to some of the people in the park department about this, and I feel like I don't know enough about the organizations. So going on written information, I guess, I mean, I can if I have to, but I'd rather hear from the organizations.
You could require them to give you some background material in the written materials. I wouldn't be inclined, even if we had oral argument, to give them each more than 5 minutes. So
No,
I don't think
exactly.
anybody's going to want to eat up any of their time talking about what their organization's all about.
Right. No, I understand that.
You know, you're going to get all the information on the organizations given to you in advance, I can guarantee you that.
Okay. All right.
And that wouldn't, well, there would be nothing that would preclude you from meeting with people.
Oh, that's true.
You know,
That's true, yeah.
if you want to, if someone wants to tell you what their side of the story is. Now, I would suggest that we got Mr. Carpenter's notice that he's appealing this. I don't think that should preclude him or the Edina Swim Club from making a subsequent submission by a date certain.
No, in fact, he fully intends to do that.
So it would, I think it'd be helpful for the council if we had their written submissions. Well, I guess we get our packets on Friday. If the council would like their submissions before Friday, I think we ought to make that call now, so that when you notice it up, the agenda, I wouldn't mind having it a week in advance, frankly.
Yeah. There's no reason you couldn't do that.
And I would really appreciate the packet, including the materials that were before the park board as well. So whatever the record is currently, plus whatever comes in
Getting it a week
between
in
now and then.
advance. So when you notice it up, tell them their position papers are due in a week in advance. And then we get them delivered to us the same day.
A week in advance.
Week in advance of the next council meeting.
Of the next council
Of the
meeting.
council meeting that they will be appearing.
Which I would suggest is
The matter will be decided.
Well, that would be the 29th when we'll be together.
No, the 20th is we have two council meetings. We have the 6th and the 20th.
And
Manager Neal is suggesting the 20th, and
the
so
20th?
that,
Oh, okay.
then they will be due on the 13th.
All right.
Yeah.
9th.
Right. We'd give
Oh,
them the
9th.
week before.
Sorry.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
can do that.
And then that wouldn't conflict with Turkey Day,
Right.
which is, I think, where Member Brindle was going. Oh,
I wasn't.
Oh, you weren't?
Because
Okay.
I was thinking if it was December 6th, we would be together that previous Tuesday,
okay.
which is the 29th,
okay.
after
So we can just pick it up here. Yeah, I thought that's what you meant.
So it's going to go on the 20th calendar, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything else on that topic? Because I have two questions on scheduling.
Not for me.
Okay. On our December 6th work session, it's the economic development proposal at 50th and France, but are you telling me that you're suggesting that we talk about that on the 29th?
I am.
And is there a reason for moving it up a week? Because I've got a 5-month-old that will be at that 29th meeting. But as you've already had her at a meeting and you found that
She was
she
great.
sleeps
She
through
was
the whole thing.
She was helpful.
I mean, I'd love to come, but I have a limit until Christmas Day when I have a 5-month-old tag-along.
There is interest in getting an early council opinion about the proposal.
Okay.
And we can provide some written documentation to you ahead of time.
Okay.
So,
That's fine.
okay.
And then I forgot to say that on April 19th, there will be an environmental forum at the FIC auditorium from 6 to 9, talking about local environmental projects and things, and we'll hear more about that later, but I was supposed to say that.
Member Bennett, that made you think of something?
Well, Manager Neal, were you going to announce the Grandview public meeting that is taking place, is it tomorrow night at
was.
Braemar? Sorry?
No, I was not, actually. Go ahead.
What time? Does
I don't
anybody
know. I just.
No, it's Thursday night.
Well, Thursday's the steering committee, I thought. It was supposed to be the 15th and 16th unless dates got changed.
Oh, I got an email, an update that talked about the 17th. Sorry.
Do we know for certain?
I'm sorry. I
Look
don't
here,
know.
I put it on my calendar today, or had somebody put it on there.
Okay,
might
so
be
the
What did you think it was,
7th,
member?
I thought there was a meeting, that there were meetings, the
Tomorrow?
workshop meetings, the 15th and 16th, with a public meeting on the 16th, and a steering committee meeting on the 17th.
Public meeting on
For
Grandview.
It came in
The Grandview
as an
redevelopment.
extra.
Public meeting on the Grandview Square matter, 7 to 9 on Thursday.
And where is that scheduled?
Grant,
Braemar?
no, Edina Senior Center.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I said it came as an
Right,
extra.
well, and I saw that city extra, but I still think there's a meeting scheduled for tomorrow night. I won't be there, on the 16th at Braemar, and maybe Lynette Buno or whoever is serving as receptionist tomorrow could have confirmation in case anybody calls with questions. We have people who've tracked those meetings down before. Thank you.
The final thing I was going to share with the council tonight is that Karen has been working on a survey project of boards and commission members, and part of that process has been to expand it a little bit to get multiple perspectives on board and commission activities, performance, parameters, et cetera. So part of this is to extend a survey to the city staff liaisons and also to you. So you will be receiving a survey we're trying to collect your feedback and your input on board and commission operations in general, and you should look for something within the next month before the end of the year for sure. And that's all I have tonight.
All right, I just thought of something else.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't have okay. On my behalf, I ask the city clerk to tell us about board and commission reappointments and kind of where we are in that process. Ms. Mangan.
Sorry.
That's okay.
We have 33 people that were eligible for reappointment and 33 people that had terms that come due February 1st of 2012. Of those people, I think we have actually 3 that are truly term limited. Letters were sent out to everyone. At this point, we have 9 people that have not yet responded. I can tell you that we have 11 openings across the various boards, so we would be ready to start getting a press release out listing the various boards that are open. My intention would be to let Jennifer do a press release, receive applications until the 16th of December. I want I have some dates to throw out to you, asking that you choose 2 or 3 dates that you would hold interviews so we can put those dates onto the applications and the applicants can select first, second, and third options as they did last year. Receiving the applications by the 16th of December, then we can do that matrix and confirm their applications. You would be probably in the same kind of thing, starting either at 6 o'clock or 6:30 and running 10-minute interviews as we did last year. Dates that I would like you to look at would be Wednesday, January 4th, Thursday, January 5th, Monday, January 9th, Wednesday, the 18th, and Monday, the 23rd. You know, if you pick 3, we could then make your appointments on the first meeting in February, which is Monday, the 6th.
I do.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right, I was just trying to, I looked at the calendar to try to avoid, you know.
Email Josh since he's not
Right.
here.
I can email all of you, and you can with these dates, and you can give me your availability, and we'll pick 3.
So does
Is that-
anyone else have conflicts on 5, 9, and 23?
I didn't bring my calendar tonight to see which ones are Thursdays.
Thursday is 5. You have a Thursday conflict?
I have a Thursday conflict. I can make Wednesday work.
Wednesday, the 4th is better than later in the month because, well, let's see, it's a church choir, and
I know that. I was
trying to
just
figure
being-
out.
And Mayor, 4, 9, 23, if we go that way?
I'm looking good there. Those 2 Mondays look
For
good.
sure, 9 and 23?
Mhm.
Okay, so give Josh 4, 9, and 23 then and see what he says?
Or 9, 18, and 23. So the
4,
Thursday,
9, I thought we were trying to avoid 18 because it's later, a Wednesday later.
I will be able to look at my choir schedule when I go home.
Okay, so give them, send us all the email for 4, 9, 18, and 23.
Will do. Thank you.
Manager Neal. Yes, sir. Do you want to comment on the Herberger's grand opening? Or Member Bennett? Or Member Brendo?
Who has show and tell.
I do. I do. I'm excited. I bought a purse. No, it is. It's a gorgeous store. I have to admit, I mean, with approaching November 9th, I got more and more excited about it. It is a beautiful store. It is a level 5 store, and it is its top level. The store at South Town is not a level 5. I asked how close is the closest level 5 to us of Herberger's, and it is in Grand Rapids, Michigan. But it is definitely a high-end store. So in my opinion, high-end shopping has returned to Edina, or to Southdale. And I've heard from a number of people that they are thrilled. It's like walking into Dayton's. And that's literally what they're saying. Michael Kors is one of the designers of women's apparel and shoes and purses and its accessories. There is now also a Michael Kors store, Drop Dead Beautiful store, in Southdale as well, and it is a stunning store. So Southdale is doing some wonderful things, and kind of moving on to that a little bit from focusing on Herberger's. If you're walking around Southdale, you'll see some easels with some drawings. And so some of the ideas about what Southdale is planning are being shared with the public, so it's exciting.
Thank you for that good update. And if my memory serves me right, 250 new jobs in Edina at Herberger's, which is great. And
a huge, huge turnout.
Oh, yeah. Manager Neal, one other thing, I thought maybe you might want to comment about the fact that the bids are due in today on Pentagon Park.
The two institutional owners of Pentagon Park some time ago agreed to jointly employ Northmark to conduct a bidding process, and today was the day that they were to receive bids from bona fide developers, and we should be hearing soon, I think, from Northmark about what kind of results they got, and whether the institutions will be interested in moving ahead, or at least likely moving ahead.
Was originally
part of the property.
Part of the property, right.
And a Friendship Village type housing development to the south of Fred Richards Golf Course, and then 2 office towers and parking and the hotel on the south of 76th.
So they did all that property, or just the actual old?
All of it.
All of it.
Yep.
Wow, okay.
All 35 acres or whatever.
It's a big piece.
It is. Yeah.
So stay tuned on that. That was the only other thing I thought that the council would want to know about. So, all right, we stand adjourned.